Eagle Scout project. Okay, Board of Assessors tax classification hearing, please. When you come on up, please make sure the microphones are on. They just have to be registered green. They don't need to be, they're not for people hearing you in the room, it's for at home.
It's green.
Perfect, thank you. If you could talk loudly into it, that'd be great. Welcome.
Welcome. I'm Meredith Stone, the assessor.
Richard Baker, chairman of the Board of Assessors.
And Thomas Atwood, he is an assessor.
And Jen.
And Jen, he's right here. And Jen.
This is Jen.
Okay, yep.
So you have the entire board here. Just as a rough overview, the values of the houses in the town went up by 9% this year. We're roughly asking for a 9% reduction in the tax rate per thousand to $14.63 per thousand. That means the quote average home tax bill will increase 2.13%. However, 1.13% of that is new growth, new buildings. So each person's, an existing house will see a 1% increase on tax bill roughly.
Okay.
If we were to split the rate,
If you could talk a lot louder and.
if we were to split the tax rate, being a 10% shift, the only savings would be $20.89 per resident, but per business would be $773.13. So it would be a burden of proof would be a lot on the business.
So you're advocating to have one tax rate for business and for residents?
That's correct.
Yes.
Like we've done since I've been on Selectmen.
Historically, in the past, would be good.
Okay.
That's because West Newbury has such a small business base, and so we're primarily residential.
Mm-hmm. So, is that it?
Yep.
Kind of? Do you have any questions, Joe or Dave?
Yeah,
I just didn't.
I think it would just be instructive for people. So what percentage of, just for the public to know, what percentage of the real property in the town is commercial versus homeowners?
Be the
Like
90-10.
Yeah.
Say that again?
90-10?
90-10, okay.
90% residential, 10% commercial.
That low, 90, really?
That low? Yeah.
That sounds low. I would have thought it would be even higher, actually.
Well, we have, for the exact, it's right here. Sorry about that.
I mean,
It is, it's close to 90 something.
I had
think it's like 94,
yeah, it doesn't, that's fine.
Yeah, it's 97% residential, 0.8% commercial, industrial's 0.2%
And 1.81
for personal property.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? If anybody's here on this topic? Do you have any, Joe?
Yes. I just had a couple of questions about the overlay since, you don't come in that often, but do you know how much you've actually used in the last 2 years? Was the first question, and then how much was actually used in the year following the last revaluation, because this was a reval year. So just to set a baseline, how much was used and then how much was used, and then how much have we budgeted for the overlay for this tax year?
For this tax year, about 173. And we've used between exemptions and I think about 38.
Yeah. Most of the money coming out of the overlay is for exemptions.
Yeah.
And
So
abatements.
I didn't hear the number. How much have we actually used?
I believe it's like 38,000. I don't have it in front of me, but it's
Right.
about 38 for
What-
abatements and exemptions.
Was it more the last time there was a reval year? Was it? I mean, if let's say 38
It
or
was a
40,
little less.
it was less than a
little
reval year.
less, yeah.
Oh, okay.
About 33.
Okay. Okay, that was it. That it?
That's it for me. Any for you guys?
So
Anything
I'm
else or anything? Okay.
Make a motion to adopt a single tax rate to be applied for the fiscal year for 2016.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you, Board of Assessors. Eagle Scout project. I saw him, the gentleman come in. Why don't you come up, sir? Hi, how are you tonight? If you could do me a favor and pull that microphone in front of you, please, so we can hear you. Well, not us, but we can hear you, but at home, because this is... It's on.
It's on.
Yeah. No,
Sure it's
yeah,
on?
you won't hear it here. It's
Oh,
for
okay.
home reasons.
It's for the TV.
Now, somebody at home was watching, just had the, got their ears when you were banging on it.
All right.
So, take a deep breath, relax, and tell us why you're here tonight.
Well, I recently proposed an Eagle Scout project to fix up Pikes Bridge Road. It's a discontinued town road that connects Turkey Hill and Rogers Street.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what I want to do is repair it a little, because over the past few years, I don't know if you know Bruce Colby, he takes his tractor down there. There's a hay field about halfway down the road. And the tractor just kind of makes, some pretty deep ruts. And in the winter time, they fill up with water and get frozen over with ice, and it gets kind of dangerous to walk on, especially with people on bikes and horses and stuff like that.
Yep.
So for my project, I just want to bring in some gravel and fill in the ruts and level out the road, and maybe do a little trimming too, because it's starting to get grown in areas.
Okay.
So that's basically the gist of it.
This is going to be under the guidance of the Essex County Trail Association.
Yes.
Gary, you see any other roads? Well, is that? I was just going to say that every couple of weeks, Ash Swamp needs to be filled in. Okay, so I don't have. I mean, obviously, you've submitted this.
Yep.
I'd like you to get approval, I guess, from the Essex County Trail Association, or maybe even our local
Open space.
open space. Just kinda-
Who have you talked to? Have you talked to Essex County
Yeah.
Trails?
Yep.
Anybody locally?
I've talked to Essex County Trails. I have permission from them.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to talk to Conservation right after I meet with you
Tonight?
guys. Tonight,
Okay.
yeah.
Good.
Have you
So-
talked to our open space people at all?
No.
They're kind of our trail stewards
Yeah.
Oh, I'm one of the trail stewards for ECTA.
for open space.
Oh, no.
For
Okay.
West Newbury.
Yeah.
So you might want to talk to them.
Yep.
And then just anything, when it's finalized, if you want to just kind of, to kind of have some type of, not policing, but just kind of some go-ahead, hey, this is exactly what I'm going to do. I mean, this is kind of vague, but you kind of know it. So then Gary knows what's going on out there. Maybe you can just inform him, or inform us when it's going to happen. So
Okay.
just so there's kind of, we know what's going on out there. When we start getting phone calls, if somebody's out there, we just know. I don't know, there could be an event, there could be, they might use, the equestrians might use that, and then
Yep.
you'd be out there with a tractor at the same time. Yeah, I don't know, I'm just trying to,
Foresee.
huh?
Trying to foresee.
Yeah, exactly, foresee, so it goes nice and smooth. It sounds terrific, thank you very much. Hopefully, Mr. Atwood?
It would be helpful for the Conservation Commission meeting later this evening if the Board of Selectmen approved by vote work, so this gentleman could start his work as soon as practical. So I guess he turns 18 in March, and in case we get early snow, might prevent the work from getting done.
So,
Basically, the Conservation Commission walked Pikes Bridge Road, basically.
excuse me, 1 second. You gotta use the microphone. I didn't know it was gonna go on for a while. I just thought you might say one thing. You gotta use the microphone.
Sorry to those at home, should know that.
Is it on?
Yeah, make sure it's on, please.
Is it green?
That's right.
Green.
Green now. Sorry about that, folks at home. I'll start over.
Lucky that.
Basically, the Conservation Commission did a site walk of Pikes Bridge Road on November 1st, went through from one end, from Turkey Hill to Garden and back, and it looked like the work would entail filling in the ruts so it's even, the road becomes even again up to Pikes Bridge from Turkey Hill. The road from Pikes Bridge up to Garden Street has really grown in quite a bit, so it would require widening that back out to about an 8-foot width so people on horses could navigate it side by side and enjoy the scenery. So what would be helpful for the Conservation Commission, since we don't have purview over what's still a public right-of-way, if the Board of Selectmen could make a motion and approve any work, so that way the Conservation Commission knows that the work has been approved by the board. This gentleman is going to be turning 18 in the spring. I'm sure he wants to get the work done as quickly as possible.
Thank you. So I don't see anything, and Gary, you know, is our steward of our roads too, so I don't see a problem with this, to have him proceed with this project.
Me neither.
Could you just inform us when you're going to start
Sure.
and when you're finished?
Yep.
Sound good?
We
That's
want
good.
And if
to
you need any
make a motion?
paperwork, sorry, and if you need any paperwork from us, you know, that it's been finished or that we have to submit something for your Eagle Scout or anything, that would be more than willing to do something.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
So I move
So-
to approve, I don't know how to pronounce your name.
What's that?
I don't know
How
how
do
to
you pronounce
pronounce your name.
Oh, it's Colton.
Colton,
Almasta.
okay. To make improvements to Pikes Bridge Road as outlined on the letter.
Second.
I would put down for his Eagle Scout project.
Where's Eagle Scout? Well, it's-
Okay, it's been moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Yep.
Good luck. Are we getting Mr. Tyra, or are we getting his, are we still waiting for him? Okay, that's fine. Just want to make sure.
We can do item number 4 real quick in about 30 seconds.
Yeah, Thanksgiving breakfast for the All Sports. You want to make a motion?
I move to approve the Thanksgiving All Sports one-day liquor license for November 26th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're
You
going to
wanna
hold
vote?
off on number 5. Make a motion to appoint the Car Post Committee as special municipal employees.
Second?
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 You want to do the next one, Joe?
Yeah.
We'll just keep on doing them
Yep,
until
I move to appoint Kelsey
Grenham?
Grenham as a part-time dispatcher through June 15th or 16th, 2016.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're under appointment still, right?
Yep.
I move to appoint Patrick Bowe to the Town Website Committee.
Second? Any
Oh,
discussion?
second, yes. I thought you said second.
No second? Any
Yes.
discussion or anything? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Spell that name, please.
B-O-W-E.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of October 19th.
As amended.
Excuse me?
Oh, sorry. As amended.
Yeah, as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to approve the minutes of November 2nd.
Second.
Any questions?
No.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You want to talk about the proposal from Maya?
Looks good to me, unless there's anything that needs to be...
No, Chris, is there anything, Mike McCarron here? Oh, there he is. Anything that we need to talk about on the Maya thing? It looks pretty straightforward to me. No, Chris? Make sure it's on, please.
I think it's a good deal. It's going to be liability, workers' comp, so it's going to be for the whole year. And then the next one is just a small,
Increase in 2017
yes.
and 18. Okay, Mike B., did you have anything, any comments on it or no?
No, but I think, I want to say that's good because I think we've had 0 last year too.
2 years of 0 then.
Yeah, so
Okay.
a nominal increase in 18 is reasonable.
Okay, Joe, you want to make a motion? I mean, is this, do we need to make a motion on?
Do we need to
make a
approve, do we
motion
need to
on this?
approve this?
Approve
No.
it? No.
Okay.
Okay. That's what was that was throwing us off. Request to rent the annex for lifelong screening?
I move to approve the rental of the annex to Lifeline Screening at a fee of $500 for February 13th.
Second, but I'd like to make a comment on it.
Sure. Discussion?
We've got it initialed as a non-profit versus a commercial out of town. I think it should be a,
It's a commercial out of town.
yeah.
And they have no problem with the $500?
That's what
Paid
we
it last
decided
time.
last year time,
And
yeah.
they have no problem with that? They kind of
Yes.
hemmed and hawed?
They're
Okay.
fine with it.
Good. Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Request to use the annex for the Car Post Card Club.
Second.
They want to bring their table and keep it on the stage. Anybody have a problem with that?
No.
Nope.
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are they going to get a key? Why don't we give Steve Arnold the permanent key for the annex?
Michael has them, I think.
Instead of them signing one out every week, why don't you just permanently sign it out to him until it stops and he's responsible for it, and then we'll need it when they don't want it anymore. Thank you.
No fee for that, right?
No,
No fee.
absolutely not. We are all ready?
Item 1.
Item 1. Senator Tar, Route 113. Welcome, Lenny. And
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
how are you, Ben?
Members, nice to see you all.
Good. I think this is a record. Only 19 past 7. So we're happy.
Unfortunately, there was a little bit of traffic congestion, but we're going to hear some solutions to that tonight. So.
Yeah.
But thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through the members of the board for allowing us to have some time tonight on your agenda. A while ago, you had written to us about the importance of having sidewalks in West Newbury, and particularly on Route 113. And so we went to work with our colleagues at Mass DOT and raised that priority, and they have spent a considerable amount of time trying to work to include creating sidewalks or rebuilding sidewalks on Route 113 as part of a resurfacing project. We know that's extremely important to the board and to the town, and so I am pleased to report that I believe we are going to see some progress on that front.
Excellent.
That's
On-
great.
On new or refurbished?
Well, I'm going to let the team, and Frank Szynski is here, whom we've worked with a lot on these kind of issues, to report that. But I would point out that this is one of those things that sometimes we take for granted because we know the importance of sidewalks and we know they're integral to our transportation system. But lately, it's been difficult to fund them outside of road reconstruction projects. So the folks at Mass DOT have done an outstanding job of trying to incorporate some needed improvements here. And rather than us getting into the specifics of those, I think it'd be best if we can have Frank explain them, but I think you'll agree
Great.
at the time of the presentation. that it's-
Perfect. Thank you.
We don't want to take it for granted.
How,
Yeah, I have a PowerPoint presentation to try to get that up and running, but in the interest of time, I have.
I would
pictures of
appreciate, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
it. I can speak to those.
Mr. McGrath, could you, Mr. McGrath, could you see if you could turn off that one series of lights behind your head that would turn this one off so people could see it, please?
If anybody would like a copy of the handout,
That should do it.
Just one.
Just one.
if we can get this up and running.
Frank, do you want to say?
That's good. Okay, why don't you, if you have some type of introduction and stuff, we can start on that. That would be great.
Thank you for having me today. My name is Frank Szynski. I'm with the Mass DOT. I work in District 4 as a project development engineer.
Mike.
And just to give you a little bit of background, the
won't read.
resurfacing of Route 113 in the town of West Newbury is planned as part of a district-wide contract. Every year, we get a certain portion of state funding available to the districts to use for bridge maintenance, some resurfacing. We do traffic signal maintenance, so that's kind of the pool of money that is being used for this project.
When is that scheduled for?
It's scheduled for this spring, summer.
Okay.
The contract was let early this last construction season, and we did 7 or 8 locations, and there's 2 more locations left to be done as part of this contract. One is going to be Route 1 in Newburyport, and the second one is Route 113, which is resurfacing of the project, the roadway project. And we did hear from the Senator's office that you guys were interested in sidewalk. We took that as meaning the existing sidewalks are going to be reconstructed. There is a short segment where there is no sidewalk within the area, the western area, that does have sidewalks. So we are going to include some new sidewalks. I think it's House 145 Main Street to 165, something like that. It's in the, it's going to be in that handout.
What, okay.
So if, I did give a handout to whoever in the audience would like to do this. So for in the sake of time, do you want me to just start walking through the handout? So on page 2 of the handout, it's kind of an overview of the project. Starting on the bottom left-hand side on the westerly portion at the Groveland Town line, we're going to be resurfacing approximately 5 miles of Route 113 all the way to the Newburyport Town line. The scope of work is on page 3. The work would include milling of the roadway surface, resurfacing with a 2-inch hot mix asphalt overlay, and that'll include resetting the curb of our reinstalling new bit-con curb with his existing bit-con curb. The hot mix asphalt sidewalks will also be reconstructed from the Groveland Town line to Training Field Road approximately. There is a short section of new sidewalk that will be constructed between 154 and 164 Main Street to provide the continuous path. And probably one of the reasons the questions came up and went through the Senator's office is we have been doing district-wide ADA retrofits for all the wheelchair ramps within State Highway. So we had a separate contract 2 years ago, and we're prioritizing those, and we're going to cities and towns for high-traffic locations, schools, and we're doing just the wheelchair ramps only to upgrade those. It's a statewide initiative that we're doing, and I think we had done some in town, and that probably posed some of the questions. So I'm happy to come here and kind of explain the project that we have.
We appreciate
and
that.
Present that to you guys. So we will be doing all the ramps within that westerly portion that has sidewalks now. Will all have ADA compliant sidewalks and wheelchair ramps constructed as part of this project, including any crosswalks that go across the roadway. Those will also have ADA compliant wheelchair ramps installed. On page 4 is the typical roadway section. There's two travel lanes out there right now and a 6-foot shoulder. It varies on either side from 2 to 3 feet up to a maximum of 6 feet of roadway pavement. There's a grass strip, and then there's also a hot mix asphalt sidewalk, approximately 4 to 5 feet. And that's what we're going to be doing, is reconstructing the existing sidewalks and providing that one new section in that one location. On page 5 is kind of a typical sidewalk section. So we'll be maintaining approximately the existing grass strip and reconstructing the bit-conk asphalt sidewalk 4 to 5 feet approximately, but we'll be making sure that we have at least a minimum of a 36-inch clear path. There's some utility poles out there where we'll be able to bump out and widen the sidewalk to make sure that we have a minimum of 36 inches of clearance to be ADA compliant. And there'll be a bit-conk curb placed where there's existing bit-conk curb. The granite curb that's out there will be removed and reset.
Will you be using a granite curb on the ones you're going to be constructing?
Yeah, all the ADA compliant wheelchair ramps will have granite curb. and they'll be cement concrete. And then the sidewalks will be bit conc.
There'll be what?
Bituminous concrete sidewalks, the surface of the sidewalks. And then on page 6, there's just some existing sidewalk conditions that, which we will be addressing as part of this contract. Page 7 has the proposed sidewalks for between 154 and 164 Main Street. That's just to provide a continuous path. And that's the new sidewalk that we're proposing as part of this project. I had mentioned earlier the recently constructed access ramps that you may have seen in some portions of the town. And we do have a program to go statewide. Each district office is getting $1.2 million per year annually to go around and upgrade all the wheelchair ramps at crosswalks and traffic signalized intersections to make them ADA compliant.
That being wheelchair, and are the bubbles there, those square things, is that for people with sight?
The detectable warning panels are part of the sidewalks. Yep, all the wheelchair ramps will have those. That's a standard. Page 9 is the proposed access ramp construction that we're going to be doing. There's several crosswalks that don't have the wheelchair ramps now, but all the crosswalks will have ADA compliant wheelchair ramps. And I attached the cost estimate this is strictly for the sidewalk reconstruction. The initial estimate is $350,000 approximately. So the way the current contract is structured is important to just understand. I'll speak to that. It's a district-wide contract where we have approximately $6 million. And we had identified several locations specific for that contract, but there was also additional funds to do additional work. When we, each construction season, we'll get calls from municipalities who might have concerns about the existing condition of a roadway. We'll go out and assess that, and if we feel it's at the point where we really should be resurfacing it this year, we use these funds to try to go out and resurface those additional, most critical requests that we may get. That's just kind of how we manage. These are more like preservation funds that we use. So as part of this project, we have the money for the resurfacing of the roadway, and we're requesting additional funds be identified and put into the contract to cover the additional sidewalk work that we're talking about. So we're requesting $350,000 be added to the contract, which needs to, it's been submitted, it's got to go to board, and we have to find the state funds for that. But we're pretty confident that we're going to get that additional funds.
So if you don't get that, will you still resurface 113, or will you try to do it at a time where you would be able to get those funds for the sidewalk?
It would be beneficial for us to do the sidewalk work along with the resurfacing work.
Mm-hmm.
If we get the answer that we don't have any state funding to put towards this project for this year, for this coming spring, then we'd come back and talk with you and work through the senator's office to find out. We have the money to resurface the roadway, so we would resurface the roadway. For this last westerly portion where we don't have the sidewalks, we have several other avenues we can look for funding to cover the sidewalks. We could go back to the Merrimack Valley Planning Organization to see if they would consider, a separate project to do that, if that's the case.
So you're pretty confident that you'll get the money for the
Yeah,
sidewalks?
I'm pretty confident. I mean, we do this fairly routinely, but again, it's state funding, and it's not identified in the contract.
What did you say the timing is again? Next spring or summer?
Next spring or summer.
Okay.
There's two sections of roadway that we're going to be resurfacing for the remaining portion.
Route 1 and yeah.
And just from a contractor's perspective, that most likely they will want to do Route 1 first because there's less sidewalk and less curb in wheelchair ramp work. So they'll be able to come up first thing in the spring, mill that roadway and do that paving that gets the people back that have been laid off and get the construction season started earlier.
Mm-hmm.
They will, once they get that going and have that under control, then they'll move to 113 and start working on the wheelchair ramps and the sidewalks and any those other locations.
And you say you're going to start in Groveland?
Yeah, well,
The Groveland
the,
line.
the.
And then come,
the
Groveland
dis-
line and come
No,
this way.
that's totally up to the contractor, and we'll work that schedule out with you right now. I just presented the project because that's the way the station is. We could start from either end.
Well, I would, if you were gonna start hypothetically in June,
Yes,
I would say start on that end, because starting on that end is right in front of a school.
sure.
If,
Well, you got a school
if-
down there too.
Yeah, but if you, yeah, that's true, but it's a little bit more hectic there,
Yeah,
because you have two schools going in with buses. But I mean, if we're gonna do it, you know, it all depends, it's all timing.
yeah, and I
And
think,
so I'd like to make sure we work with the towns and the cities
Absolutely.
and the school district,
yeah,
so we just don't want a construction.
yeah.
People
yeah,
show up on one day,
I-
put cones out, and it's,
I agree.
it's all heck.
Yep, no, I agree, and we'll make sure we do that. Mike Sherwood is the resident engineer, and I'll make sure that he knows to coordinate with, is there a specific contact person in the town? Do you want us to go to the DPW director, or do we want us to write a?
That would probably be the best, to work with through the DPW director, and then he always works with us.
Yep.
And then he'll be able to contact the schools, he'll be able to contact whomever that we need and keep us informed of the project.
Yep, and I anticipate, when we find out regarding the additional funds or not, we'll be reaching back to the senator's office and let
Mhm.
Senator Tar know that where we are with that, and in the springtime, when we get the schedule from the contractor, they typically give us a 3-week look-ahead schedule for the work that they're gonna be doing. So when we get those and West Newbury pops up on the radar screen, we'll certainly coordinate
We'll
with
know
the
what-
town. And We'll have flexibility in starting on either side, and if you identify the two school zone areas where you want us to either, let's wait till the kids get out and
Mhm.
try to push that, it depends on the timing, but. I
If we
think-
have that flexibility, that would be
Yeah,
great.
we do, and that's just through good communication.
Mhm.
Excellent. I mean, I think this is excellent news, so I appreciate
Sure.
it. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Tar. Thank you, Representative Mira. Excellent. The sidewalks are something we wanted to have done for years.
We've been fighting, and
Years.
I have to say that, since I've been a selectman, and long before I've been a selectman, there was another selectman, Dick Cushing, who's been was fighting for sidewalks as long as he was a selectman, and that was long before I became a selectman. So we've been trying to do this because of the urgency
Mhm.
and the safetiness of 113. So it's
Yeah.
not exactly what we want, because we'd like to have the whole thing paved, but we have to be realistic, and we appreciate getting that new sidewalk, because I know exactly where it is. That's where actually I walk,
That's
you
perfect.
start, and then,
Yeah.
it connects our
Yeah.
schools all the way to the training field,
Right.
which is important down there.
Right. And I've been with the district in this capacity for 8 years, and I don't recall having discussions or seeing letters from the town come in on that.
To you?
To the district highway director, that's where,
We weren't sending them to you.
no, and I think that's why when some of the ADA ramps were being done around town, questions started bubbling up, and I imagine you were talking with Senator Tar's office possibly on the sidewalk. So we typically, like I said, these are preservation funds, and we look at the roadway first, and getting into the sidewalk work does get expensive, and we try to stretch those funds. But once we were contacted, we came out and took a look at the existing condition. It was kind of obvious to us. There was no pushback on our end to doing those. We saw the need. It was a matter of identifying the funding associated with it.
Especially, it might not seem like it, but we're very rural. There's a lot of kids that walk, use their bike.
Sure.
We don't have no public transportation. You just can't get on a bus. A kid, and especially that way, the training field. That's where you have your high school and your middle school. A lot of kids do walk home. A lot of kids do that rather than on the elementary school level. So it's important to have good sidewalks and continuous all the way as far as we can get them, and we appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you both. Thank you, Senator.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I
Yeah.
also want to thank Representative Mira for her work on this as well.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we understand as a legislative delegation how important this priority is. And I also want to recognize Dan Fielding from Mass DOT, who's been helpful on our end of working with this. And as always, District 4 is incredibly responsive when we ask, and this is another example of that. But I would just reiterate that we may take sidewalks for granted, but it does take an extra effort to get them included. And we really appreciate the work that Mass DOT has done to make sure that they are included in this project. So, thanks to you.
Very much. And if something,
Thank
if
you.
there's anything
Yeah,
we can
it's
do,
great.
if all of a sudden you don't see the funding or it needs to be, there's something we can do as a community, along with Senator Tar, Representative Mayor, because I know they've been fighting all
Sure.
along for this. We'll be glad to.
Yep.
I mean, if anything, I don't know.
Yep,
I mean,
absolutely.
Just,
He's-
one note, couldn't get the PowerPoint going, I apologize.
Yep, no,
but
don't be.
That's fine.
Car's office will have it, Rep. Mayor's office will have it, I can get it to you, you can ask me for it, so.
Sure. One question I have, I'm sorry, Dave, is how long it's going to take it from start to finish? Because that will be a question people will ask us.
It'll probably be 6, 8 weeks, I think. It's a pretty long stretch. What you'll see first is they'll come in and they'll start working on the wheelchair ramps and doing those and prepping the sidewalks. And there's some very little drainage that needs to go in, but where that new section is gonna be. And then they'll come back in and they'll mill the entire roadway surface. So you'll see more sidewalk work going ahead in advance of the milling and paving.
Okay.
Again, that's contingent upon the spring startup. I assume that the contractor has the ability to choose where he wants to start, and it'll inform us that where he wants to go, and then we'll coordinate with the local municipalities as to what the plan is. But we're always open to modifying that, as long as we're not excessively delaying the contract from actually starting his work.
Good.
We would just ask you,
Sure.
obviously,
We would definitely-
that our DPW, Gary Bill, is going to be the point person,
Yep.
and, you know, you're in good hands.
Yep.
Dave?
I just wondered, not really any significant changes to 113, right? It's just
Correct.
no widening or anything like that, or?
No, it's strictly a resurfacing project, reestablishing the similar pavement markings that are out there, in the same configuration.
Any
Well-
poles have to be moved, or no?
We haven't identified any. We see a couple areas that are gonna be tight, but we feel we have enough room at the back of sidewalk to be able to get the 36-inch clearance for the sidewalk. And those are the things typically that we try to avoid, only because of the cost and time associated with those. But obviously, we have instances where we have to do that, but we'll try to work around those as much as we can. I don't anticipate any utility relocations for this project.
Great, thank you.
Gary?
Jen? Yep.
You're gonna be doing day and night, both?
That depends. I mean, I think their preference would be to do days, but we've done days and nights depending on the traffic patterns. I think for here, if it's something that we don't get on the road till 9 o'clock and the volumes are such that we can do that, we will. But Route 1 will be a night job and this could be a night job, but
Yeah, Route 1
it's a
doesn't concern
it's a
us.
balance.
It's not that, whatever, but
Right. I mean,
that's a great question, because I never
It
even
is.
thought about a night one and disrupting everybody who lives on Route
Yeah.
113. So we prefer days if that's possible.
Yeah, and again,
It is what it is.
it involves the
At the-
traffic and
I understand.
we'll look at those numbers and we'll develop the work.
Are we go down to one lane, or are you gonna detours, or how's that gonna work?
It's gonna be, we'll be maintaining one lane in each direction at all times. So they'll be milling, and when they do the milling and paving, that'll be the most disruptive. But for a majority of the spring, summer, they'll be working on the sidewalks, the wheelchair ramps, and so.
They really mill and pave quickly now.
What's that? Yeah,
That does go quicker than you think it does.
it does. I mean, it will be a week to mill it, and it'll be, you know,
Couple of,
well, it might be a little bit more than a week. It might be more like 2 weeks to mill it
Mhm.
and a week to pave it, but there's a delay between the milling of it, they raise the structures and rebuild the structures,
Mhm.
and then come back maybe a month and a half later and do the paving. And we'll coordinate that with you guys. And
Good.
like I said, when they're doing the wheelchair ramps and things like that, they prefer to do those during the day and they can pick those work hours. But when you come into doing the milling and trying to get 2 lanes of traffic or possibly detouring, that's when we'll be reaching out to the DPW and anyone in the town to try to work out those details.
thank you. I appreciate you coming in.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, we'll
Yep.
keep you informed, and when we have an update, and also be assured that the legislative delegation will be working with DOT to make sure we get funding for this. But we'll give you updates as frequently as we have information to report.
If you could do that, and then when it gets started, we can post it on our website to make sure that our citizens are aware of certain things and stuff like that.
And we
Excellent.
also look forward to working with the DPW director on this. Obviously, he's an integral part of this, and he's raised these concerns in the past as well, too. So I think we can forge a good partnership and get this done and make good progress.
Awesome.
Excellent news. Thank you.
Great. Look forward to it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Whose stuff is all this? Whose stuff is all what? That.
Whose is that?
All that stuff.
Whose is that? Yeah.
Is that our stuff? This stuff? Is there any way you can just grab it and put it in the, like, down there? Is it ours? Is this our stuff?
Yes.
Oh, okay. We'll put it away later. If we can just put it,
Move it off the table.
we're 11 minutes. I thought I went through that pretty quick, though.
That's pretty good.
Okay, this is the portion of the Selectmen's meeting that we're going to start with interviewing the 3 candidates that we have for police chief. Finalists. I can't hear. Okay, we're starting at 7:38. Mike, please sit down. Mike is the first one. So I want to go over a few things first. I want to talk about exactly how we started, where we are, where we're going to be. Can you ask them to be quiet out there?
Or move, just move.
Yeah. We started this process after we learned that our chief, Lisa Holmes, is retiring. She'll be retiring at the end of the year. We put together a job description and a posting to try to get candidates for that position. The deadline was October 16th. At the end of the process, on October 16th, we had 75 applicants that applied for the job. We put those 75 applicants through a matrix that we had set up, and we brought it down to 9 people that were part of an interviewing process to bring it down to 3 finalists. Things that we looked at. I don't know if anybody's read the posting, but a couple of important things I just want to say to bring people up to speed and just tell them about the process. This was the posting. Town of West Newbury, Mass. is seeking a progressive, community-oriented police chief to lead a department of a full-time reserve police officers in the dispatch department. Chief of police is the chief administrative officer of the police and dispatch departments and in the final department authority in all matters of policy, operations, and discipline. A bachelor's degree of criminal justice or related field is required. A master's degree in criminal justice or public administration or a related field is preferred. And then it went on to say the qualified applicants should put their their resumes and their statements of interest to the Board of Selectmen. And it gave a website with additional information. That additional information was a job description. And basically the recommendations of minimum qualifications of the position that we were looking at. I think it's important to note that we took this very seriously. And we came up with 9 qualified people, then 3 finalists, and each of those 9 and 3 met the qualifications that we set forth. And I think it's important to know that these were recommended minimum qualifications. And we feel that we came up with 9 excellent people, and the process brought out 3 finalists that we are very happy to have come in tonight and to have questions asked of them by the board. And then we will be making a decision sometime this week or early next week. And hopefully this person will be starting before or on January 1st as our chief retires.
So you'll be interviewing tonight and then you'll deliberate in public next week?
Yes, this process will be.
At the end of this week, you'll have a meeting, or how's that going to work?
At the end of this, we'll be deliberating in our next meeting, we'll be deliberating in public.
So you don't anticipate making a decision until your next meeting?
Yes, because that decision needs to be made in a public meeting. So if we don't make it tonight,
Schedule another meeting?
we're going to schedule another
You're
meeting.
not going to wait till your next regular meeting?
It all depends.
Okay, but it will be a public deliberation?
Yes.
Yes,
Absolutely.
has to be, and will be.
And those qualifications that you listed are available on
Yeah,
They were, I
and I
think
think
they're
they're taken down, but I have a copy of them. Do you have a question of those?
I just would like to hear what they are. Are they very long?
Yes, it's 3 pages.
Oh, it's 3 pages long, the
Yeah.
minimum requirement?
Well, no,
The
whole
job
job
description.
The
description.
job
3
description
pages.
is 3
No, I'm
pages.
just talking about those minimum requirements.
It's a half a page.
It's an
It's a half page.
education and experience, knowledge and ability and skills, and physical requirements.
So,
So a bachelor's degree in criminal justice or related field, master's degree in criminal justice, public administration, or related preference, over 8 years' experience in law enforcement in which at least 5 years has been in a command capacity, knowledge and ability and skill. The police chief should have the extensive knowledge of Massachusetts criminal law and motor vehicle laws and the ability to supervise personnel and handle complex events as they unfold. The skill to manage, delegate responsibility and provide officers with the tools and support they need to do the job. Must have completed a basic police recruitment academy which has been certified or is certified by the Massachusetts Criminal Justice Training Council. Must possess a valid Massachusetts driver's license and operate a motor vehicle. Physical requirements of the position is a working police chief and should carry the same physical requirements as required by the Massachusetts Criminal Justice Training Council for entry-level officers.
I'll get that from you later if I could, but just
Yep.
what you said was everybody that you interviewed, that you brought forward, met those requirements.
More than,
More than that.
More.
Yeah.
I think people have to understand a few things. That the education and the experience. I mean, everybody met the education. I mean, everybody met everything. But when you're looking at command experience, that can be, these were just recommended. So we looked at the individuals and their command experience in the life that they lead, and it could be a capacity as a police officer and or a fireman, because I think that's where the question is lying out there, and I want to make sure that we
Not
put...
lying from me.
No, I know. I'm not saying that it is. So I want to make sure that the 3 finalists in our minds, the 9 finalists, excuse me, the 9 people we interviewed, met these qualifications, surpassed all of these qualifications that, that we have. We vetted properly, and then the 3 finalists that met them more than that in our minds.
I'd just like to add that even the 9, or maybe even more than the 9, we were impressed greatly by the quality of the applicants. And personally, I could have probably taken any one of the 9. The people were extremely good.
right. And we could have I totally agree. I mean, we could have interviewed way more than 9. I was blown away by the qualifications of the people that applied. And, you know, just to reiterate what Glenn said a little bit, I mean, we evaluated everybody based on specific criteria, whether we're screening their resumes or the initial screening interviews that we did. I mean, it is not a popularity contest. It's based on the criteria. And also, you know, we're going to ask some specific questions tonight, but please understand that we've already done a screening interview, so there's been questions that have already been asked. So if you kind of are wondering, well, why didn't they ask this? It's probably because we already did. We've already talked about community policing. We've already talked about use of force as 2 examples.
Okay?
I'll just like to add one thing. We were, in terms of the questions we asked individual applicants, we were, I think, pretty good at being systematic. We asked everyone exactly the same questions, even if we thought the answers might be redundant or something that we knew the answer from. We asked every single person the same questions.
Will we be making those questions available to the public?
We could.
The screening interview?
Yeah. We're gonna make everything we possibly can make.
I don't see any reason why not. Yeah.
We're gonna make everything public about the whole thing as much as we can. That will go through Mike. I mean, there's resumes. Certain things that need to be redacted, like people's home phone numbers, people's email addresses, and things like that. But we have no problem in making the whole process as transparent as it possibly can be. And that's a great point. We treated every single individual with the exact same questions. We didn't differentiate from those questions, and because we wanted to make sure it was as fair as possible. Okay, Joe?
Okay, so we're starting at 7:52. Mike, I think in the initial screening interview, I mean, everybody talked about the opioid crisis that's in all the surrounding towns and is probably in our town too.
Yes.
I mean, we'd be naive to think that it's not in West Newbury. I mean, how would you approach this issue?
Well, we read about it every day. It's in the news. Some of us have experience hands-on with it. Others have close family members that have had run-ins with that. And we've worked really hard in the West Newbury Police Department to address that so it meets the needs of our community. We are a smaller community, we have a smaller population, but there is always that concern of how is that going to approach West Newbury? How is that going to be a problem that the West Newbury Police have to interface and solve?
Okay. How would you incorporate social media into West Newbury policing, or should you?
We have, in small ways, I've already tackled that through Twitter and Facebook. We have a website that we try to update regularly with information. I think that as the years progress, we're going to need to do a lot more. I think that's a great way to reach out to the community, keep them informed.
Okay. Can you talk about the procedure you would use to hire somebody and or to promote somebody?
Okay, so for hiring, we would conduct an application process where we take in applications for the particular job, whether it's for police, dispatcher. We would go through that process, and basically similar to the way the selectmen were doing this process, we would break that down into categories based on the necessary job. I would want to bring in possibly the sergeants to have those discussions as well, because obviously that's going to be a member of the police department that's going to be under their control. Same with promotion. A little bit differently on promotion, we have a lot more insight into the individual, into their character, into their policing abilities or their dispatch abilities. So with regards to promotion, that would be similar, but it would be a little bit more, there'd be a lot more information up front for us.
Okay. How would you translate your management experience in the fire department to the police department?
Well, currently, as the fire chief, I'm responsible for overseeing the budgetary running of the fire department. That includes payroll, bills, fleet maintenance, personnel management, discipline. So all of that I already have have experience with. As far as additional concerns, I've interfaced with the finance committee. I've interfaced with the town accountant, finance director, to deal with budgetary concerns, budgetary forecasting.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Archie?
Okay, knowing what you know about West Newbury, what types of community policing do you think would work best in our community?
Well, I think what would work best is the community policing that I'm quite familiar with, quite versed in. Oftentimes there's problems that plague the schools, the senior population, or the community at large. I think we need to identify some of those problems or issues and do the best we can to try to solve the problem or at least provide assistance to the community. We've got Pentucket Regional School District. We spend an awful lot of time with K through 12 dealing with at-risk students, parents, providing resources to the parents as far as some technological advances that have come down the road,
And we have the senior population where there also can be concerns that they need the assistance of the police department. So I believe that that would be the way I would focus on those particular issues or problems.
Give us an example or two of a innovative policing program that you've implemented or worked on.
Well, we're currently working on the school district, the middle school, even the Page School and the high school as far as hazard planning. And that can be any hazard whatsoever, whether it's a law enforcement-based hazard, emergency, medical-based, or fire-related. We've been working on providing the tools for to support the staff that are dealing with these issues and have to respond to these issues. And we also have some programs that teach the students from K through 12 how to better handle themselves, whether it's at home or in the school environment.
When you talk about hazards, expand on that a little bit. What do you mean by that?
It could be anything. It could be a fire alarm,
chemical hazard, or
chemical hazard, all the way up to school violence.
The population of Massachusetts and West Newbury are both aging. What changes in police activities and resources should be made to address this?
I think that as we go into the future, especially with law enforcement and policing activities in the town, I think it's important for us to constantly reevaluate. There are always going to be changes that impact even a small town like West Newbury. I think that it's important to reevaluate, and it's important to put into effect, the necessary tools.
Go ahead.
Can you elaborate on what type of tools they would be?
Well, I mean, again, we go back to social media with getting information out to people. We're always going to have to adapt to the way we provide policing strategies. Domestic violence is of concern within the community. It's important for us to make sure that we have the proper training and, again, the proper tools to do our enforcement and do it properly.
I have one more.
Sure, please.
Okay. As we're all aware, West Newbury's a small town. We have a small police force. How would you see yourself in terms of being a working chief? I don't expect you to give me an exact percentage, but how would you see yourself being in the community or in a cruiser or walking at pipe stave versus behind the desk?
Right. Now, and that's a great question. And in a community of this size, I think that you hit the nail right on the head that it is going to be a working chief. There are certainly going to be the administrative functions of the job. But at times, there's going to be the need for the chief to provide assistance to the staff. Again, we're only so big, and we have, at times, things get very busy. So I don't see that it would be regularly, but if the need arose, that would certainly happen as far as response.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Describe your philosophy on how a student research officer school resource officer could integrate into our school system.
Well, I think that I work during the day shift, and we're at the schools quite often.
Can you just speak a little louder?
Sure. I believe that that currently the day shift officers regularly perform that role as a school resource officer. And we're busy at the Page School, the middle school, and also at the high school. I believe that we do a really good job of being available at the school. We respond to students on a regular basis while we're there. We do building checks where we walk around the school just to make sure the building is secure, and also that gives us an opportunity to interface with the staff or the students. So as far as creating that type of role, I think that at this point...
Or expanding on what you
Yeah,
currently have?
I think at this point, many of the officers that we have during the shifts, especially during the school hours, perform a great role as a school resource officer.
Okay. With the understanding that you're not completely familiar with all the facts of the present situation, what new types of training would you institute for the officers?
Well, I think we need to, and part of this comes from my fire department experience, a lot more hands-on type training. There's a lot available to law enforcement on and off the job. There's plenty available on the internet, but I feel that there's a lot of training that needs to take place in person, in a simulated environment, to better provide support to the officers, especially our first responders or first entering officers. I feel that a number one priority needs to be with the schools. That's a serious location for us to be properly trained and to have the proper tools to provide safety and security at that location.
Can you expand on that? Like what type of safety, what would you train for?
Well, right now, our focus needs to be for school violence that would take place at any of those locations. That could involve an irate parent, a distraught parent on the campus posing a problem, or that could go all the way up to unthinkable acts of violence.
Okay. This is more like it's a question. One thing, well, we learned a lot of things, but one thing I think that kind of stuck with us after this process was talking to every single person we talked to. That policing's not going, the current policing that our grandfathers knew, or we know now, is going to change. There is and I want you to speak about how you think policing in the future is going to be, and how it should be, and how you would utilize, the West Newbury Police Department to make sure that happens.
Sure. The future has many, many obstacles, and again, I think that our number one concern is going to be to focus on the trends that we start to see. In law enforcement, we see a lot of trends that happen on the outside of the town, on the periphery. That gives us an opportunity to plan for how that may affect the town of West Newbury. Again, I think it's going to always involve reevaluating how we operate in the town, and again, going back to making sure that we have the necessary tools for the first responders who are going to be providing those types of service.
Do you have any follow-up, Joe?
No.
Follow-up, Archie?
No.
Okay, well, thank you coming in.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Do you have anything that you'd like to say or add? As you know, these were a series of questions that started with probably over 100 in our first interview.
Yes.
We broke it down to these. Do you have anything that you'd like to say?
Again, I want to thank the board for the opportunity. I'm honored to be considered a finalist for this position. As you all know, and many people in the community know, I'm focused on providing the absolute best for the town, and also the absolute best for the members of the public safety, including the police department and dispatch. So again, thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. One thing I did not mention earlier, that we're not going to take any questions from the public, or, but if anybody has a comment or a question at the end, that we're willing to take them then, just so we can keep the process flowing.
All set with me?
You mean
Yep.
at the end of the night?
Yes, well, the end of the
And
process.
the interview process.
Because we have a long night after this.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Chris? Went a lot faster than we thought.
Yes. Hi, Art.
Evening,
Hey, Art, how are you tonight?
Evening. Dave.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me again.
This introduction will be a little bit shorter because just so you're up to speed, because you're the second person, all we did was the first applicant, I kind of explained what the process has been, and you've been part of that process, so you know what it is. And that tonight we're going to be interviewing our 3 finalists, which you're aware of, and that we'll be making our decision within a week. And we hope the person will be starting late December, early January, give or take, you know, whatever it is, it is. So we're just going to ask another series of questions. We've already asked you a ton of them that night. It took over an hour and a half or whatever it did. So basically the same thing. We're going to ask you some questions. If they might sound repetitive that we asked you before, some kind of are. We touched it based on a few of these, but please, this is the opportunity to just tell us about yourself and your policing style.
Okay.
Joe?
Okay, so I think last time we talked a little bit about the opioid crisis. That's, I mean, basically we did with everybody. It exists in most surrounding towns, and I think we'd be naive to think that it does not exist in West Newbury. How would you approach this issue?
Well, I would probably approach it the same way that I'm approaching it now. I know the laws, obviously in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, vary a little bit, but I think the underlying score through, I guess, my 31 years of experience, I don't think we're going to arrest ourselves out of the issue by going around and arresting everybody that is addicted to some form or another of an opiate. So I think, like most other programs in law enforcement, I think it's going to be more of a team effort with obviously the social welfare, EMS and police all working together to obviously get the people that have been hooked on the opiates, obviously the services that they need. Because just arresting them and putting them in jail, the jails are overwhelmed, as we all know, and they're only going to be able to provide a small degree of, obviously, of the resources that the people that are hooked on the opiates. So I think what we need to do is, yeah, we still have to do our job at the end of the day, making obviously the town as safe as it can, but also, I guess, extending a helping hand to the people that actually truly need it, which are obviously the people that are hooked on the opiates, and that's getting them the social services that they need, and maybe hooking them up with those different social services where they might not be familiar with.
Okay. All right. Thank you. How would you incorporate social media into West Newbury policing, or should you?
Well, obviously, I already know that the town and obviously the police department already is, and I think it's a vital tool of amongst many tools that the police department and the town should be involved with. I think the days of just waiting for it to come out in a newspaper, I think a day's gone by, even though that's an important, one small important piece of the big piece, but like having a web page, which I know the town and the police department do, but also maybe having a Twitter account or having a Facebook page. I know that the department has a code red. I guess there's many different types of avenues that the town and/or police department or fire EMS can have to get out the information, no matter what the type of crisis is, whether it's just a hurricane or the significant snowfall that we all had last year, or whatever the hazardous problem of the day is. I think the more we have and the information that we can get out to all the different sections of society, to me, it's a twofold commitment, obviously, to the residents.
Could you, or should you use it more than just getting out information, but to actually do policing in some way?
Well, social media is now, compared to when I first got into law enforcement back in the early 80s, where there wasn't really any social media, to today, more people are putting more things on social media, good, bad, or indifferent, and it's another tool that we can obviously use to obviously keep seniors or kids or anyone else safe, or as well as collecting information to help solve crime, and obviously to protect seniors about different scams that are out there. So I think the more we're doing, the better service that we're going to be providing to the residents.
Okay. Can you talk about the procedure that you would use to hire somebody and/or to promote somebody?
Well, currently the procedure that we use for someone that has absolutely no experience, we all belong to a testing alliance out of Great Bay Community College, which is located over in Portsmouth, which is part of obviously the school system for the entire state. A lot of departments, I think there's probably about 50 now that all use Great Bay Alliance as a testing service. We don't have to per se pay for the test. The community college administers it, corrects it, and does all the scoring and sends out all the scores to all the departments that are prescribed in that. Our only hook is that we provide a law enforcement officer as a proctor during the times of the testing. From there, we would provide, obviously, some type of, at least in New Hampshire, we have to provide a physical fitness entrance exam to all candidates that have a desire to become a law enforcement officer, to oral boards, psychological, and polygraphs, and then the hiring process that the town may require above and beyond what the police department would. For promotional, from the last interview that I had with you gentlemen, you told me that you do have some type of evaluation system. Evaluation system I look at is more of a positive than a negative. The best way to obviously promote good men and good women of the town, as well as the police department, is have good evaluations. And obviously with good evaluations come good training. And obviously you're investing obviously in the most invested thing that this town has is obviously the employees townwide, not just the police department. So you're going to use all the training that you've obviously used during their career, and obviously the evaluation system of all the good things that they've done, or maybe bad things, and how they've corrected those things, and obviously educated themselves, and obviously become, I guess, an officer of good standing within the agency.
Okay. I don't recall, but did you, when we first talked, did you have dispatch experience at any point in your career?
Working with dispatchers, yes.
You do?
Say that again?
Yes, I mean, my whole career I've worked with dispatchers.
Well, no, I mean, obviously in New Hampshire, they have a county dispatch or whatever. Have you ever done it in the
in-house, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, where I started my career off, similar to here, we had fire, police, and dispatch service all together in one unit. What a lot of towns have decided now to go county-wise to save money. That way each town does not have to have its own dispatch center.
Was that in Epping or Exeter?
Exeter.
Exeter. Okay. Did you ever work in the dispatch, just to expand a little further, I mean, did you ever work in dispatch yourself?
I have never been a dispatcher, but I have worked inside the dispatch center.
Okay.
Part of our training early on was working with dispatchers, because obviously what they see and what an officer sees are vastly different. And even though the jobs are very the same, they obviously are very different.
Yeah.
So I guess to understand what the role of the dispatcher is and what he or she has to go through is vital. No different than them coming out and riding with the officers to see what they have to go through when they're handling calls.
Okay. All right. Archie.
Having researched West Newbury, what types of community policing do you think would work best in our community?
Well, I know that currently the police department does a triad, which I'm familiar with. I have not used triad. What we currently do where I work and have worked at other agencies is obviously getting, maybe not the program called triad or SALT, seniors and law enforcement together. What I've initiated in the last 13 years as a police chief, we have a program called the Helpful Hands Program. And it's a kind of a hybrid of other programs where we're helping seniors, we're helping children, and helping families that are in need, because usually it's because of a financial struggle or some other type of struggle in their life. We have delivered Christmas presents, we cook food for the seniors, deliver food baskets, and sometimes supply other type of means like fuel assistance. New Hampshire, we use a lot of firewood and or fuel cards for elderly to get to their different appointments. So I think it's core to help the seniors, but also through my career, I was a DARE officer for probably, I think it was at least a decade. I was the president of all the DARE officers in the state of New Hampshire at one point. So I guess what really helped my career for myself, as well as I think now as all the students that I affected, it was being the DARE officer in the school. What we used was called the Officer Friendly Program, which dated back to the 1960s. So being part of the school system, I found great rewarding personally, but I think it also helped the police department and also helped all the families. And today it's segued almost 30 years later where they called it a juvenile officer. Now we call it a school resource officer. All those things, to me, are critical of, I guess, another helping hand in the community with the kids, the parents, or the teachers. And I even took it one step further. I worked with Boy Scouts of America doing the Explorer program with having young kids, boys and girls that might be interested in law enforcement, and coaching on the high school and the middle school level. So me personally, I've done a lot, and I've instituted some of those things with the officers that work for me currently. Excuse me.
So this is going around the same area, but give us an example or two of innovative policing programs that you've implemented.
Well, the one was what I just told you, the Helpful Hands program. To expound on that a little bit more, we've even expounded that even to the next step with some of the residents. We've actually even opened a 125-foot by 125-foot garden where all the vegetables that come out of the garden during the growing season are all delivered, obviously, to the residents, to the town that obviously need a helping hand. The other ones that we've done, we've established a reading program with the elementary school, where myself or one of the other officers, whoever's on duty, goes to the elementary school and we'll read books to the kids, as well as the library. We go to the library on a weekly or bi-weekly event, depending on what kind of events they have, as well as doing the DARE program and other school bus safety programs that we have in the school, as well as with the elderly for scams and things of that they're sometimes prone to.
Again, sort of touching on what you've already mentioned, the population of Massachusetts and West Newbury are both aging. What changes do you think that is going to encumber on police activities?
Well, pretty much the whole area is aging, probably about, I would say, probably by 25%. So obviously, there's going to be probably more calls for service on fire and police. I see it for policing, more elderly are going to be prone to scams, and that's where Triad comes in, trying to help them, obviously understand about not sending money via Western Union or any of the other ways that the scam artists try to get the seniors to, but also medical. Most times police happen to be the first one on scene most of the time because we're the ones out riding around. Obviously helping them with whatever, it might be not a true law enforcement issue like fighting crime, but obviously extending the hand to obviously help the senior that might be, just needs the hand getting up off the floor or maybe making a phone call to a family member or stuff like that. It's not, the days of just policing are kind of gone by where it's more, I guess in a smaller town, it's more actually community and actually helping the people.
obviously you're aware that this is a small town. How would you see yourself in terms of, and there's not that many officers, how would you see yourself being, say, at the Little League field versus at, or in the cruiser, or behind your desk? How would you envision yourself ultimately working? Would you be out there at the Little League field?
If I had the choice, I'd rather be on the Little League field, sitting behind a desk.
I think we all would, but.
But the reality is, obviously, the police chief has to sit behind the desk at some point, but I think it's important for the residents to see the police chief, especially a working police chief, to be out there, whether it's the Little League field or the football field, or maybe at one of the dances, or during parades or stuff like that. The police chief, as well as all the other officers that work for the town, are an integral part of the town, and they have to be visible for the town. Maybe we're not talking to someone immediately, but being there as a presence, so we avail ourselves to the community, whether it's the child on the baseball field or football field, or whatever the event has to be. To me, it's important, I guess, to have trust in the community is to be part of the community, and that's being there, not just behind the desk.
Thank you. Describe your philosophy of how a SRO could integrate into our school system.
Well, since I've done that, I guess that's a fairly good question.
Why don't you tell us about it then?
Thank you. I know you don't truly have one now, and as I said, 10 years of my 31 years was spent in that type of job, even though we didn't call it an SRO. I think the kids, the parents, the teachers, and certainly me, got more out of it, I guess, collectively. I see now, even back, and it kind of makes me feel old, where they're no longer kids come up to me and say, hey, I remember you when you were doing the Officer Friendly program, and or when you were the DARE officer, or when you did this and did that, and I felt more comfortable with police officers. So to me, that is what it's all about. I think if you don't have it, we should try to institute it, providing everybody wants it. If the town doesn't want it and the school doesn't want it, then we have to follow the mission of what the town wants. But if everybody, I guess, is on the same page, it's obviously talking to the administrators, see where they think it's more warranted, in the middle school, or the high school, or split 50-50, or split it between all three schools. You know, spend a little time in the elementary, which is important, in the middle school, because now there's a transition from seeing the officer in the elementary school to the middle school, and then obviously going up to the high school. When I was doing it, I was teaching some form of class from K right to 12, and then parents. And then I even transitioned into the university system of teaching. So I found it great rewarding for me personally, but also being an avenue for a voice, obviously, for the kids and the parents and the teachers. You become a true resource of what's available for all the kids. So I think so long as the administrators are on board and the parents want us there, I think the kids that I have found over my career were very well wanted in that environment, and that segues to maybe the officer coaching, or as a female officer being part of volleyball or softball or cheerleading, or any other avenues that kind of expound on just what the job of a school resource officer is.
Good. With the understanding that you are not completely familiar with all the facets of the present situation, what new types of training would you institute for your officers?
Well, all over the country, and certainly all over the world now, especially what we saw in France, obviously terrorism probably is not going to visit West Newbury, no different than it's probably going to visit where I currently work. But it always has to be on the forefront of how can we protect our home front. I think probably one of the next leg of training is, yes, being involved in the schools, having school lockdowns, having training for the teachers and the parents that happen to be there. But I think the next level, we've pretty much mastered getting the kids and the teachers safe or out of the building for whatever the emergency is. I think the next level is obviously the medical training, even though most police don't want to be medical trained, but getting that initial training to help save a child that maybe the EMS can't get there as quickly, or the teachers, or whoever happens to be there. So I think that's the next level, as well as businesses. because businesses are going to be faced with a similar type of thing, whether it could be a movie theater, as we've seen in Aurora, or any type of other type of businesses. That's going to be the next level. But the other training is always trying to be as progressive as you possibly can into the 21st century, whether it has to deal with technology or community policing, or obviously decreasing what our risk as law enforcement officers to the type of job that we do. So obviously we drive police cars, we carry guns, and all the other type of instruments that we carry is to train the officers the best we can to deploy whatever we're going to deploy in that particular incident to the best, and that is all connected with obviously the department becoming state accredited. So your current chief, I think, would have had to dot all the i's to get to where the department is today from where it was. And I guess my goal would be, if the town wanted to, is to go to the national accreditation, and all that fits into the training of the officers and the training of the dispatchers. It's because the better we're trained, the better we're going to be able to do the job, and the less chance of, I guess, a successful lawsuit against the town and the police department.
Okay. One thing I think we all learned, at least I did, and maybe the other two selectmen, going through this process, is that the current policing, or the policing that our grandfathers or even I knew, is not going to be the same in the future. There's going to be a different type of policing. Could you expound on that, what your thoughts of how policing is going to be and how it should be in the future?
Well, policing, when I started a long time ago, there wasn't any, I don't think there were cell phones, and there weren't laptops like there is today. So just in my time, it's changed. I'm hoping by the time I get out of law enforcement, which I'm hoping is another 10 years, we won't be using spaceships. I hope we don't advance that far ahead, because that
Maybe drones, but not spaceships.
Yeah, we're already fighting drones. So that's the next thing. We've segued from the 60s to 2015, and we've changed drastically. But I think we've all come back, and West Newbury is there as well, because everything I've seen and read and talked to, it's truly about community policing. Yes, if I'm fortunate enough to be an ex-police chief, it's not my police department, it is the town's police department. And we have to encourage a relationship between the residents and obviously the police officers, because without each other, we're not going to have what we have, which is a safe community. So I guess 21st century training and constantly being involved with the community. To even maybe having sending out a survey and soliciting what the residents truly want. Sometimes as administrators, we think we know what the people want, but what I found that works for me is sending out a questionnaire either every 3 to 5 years to see, okay, what people want today, and has it changed from the last time we did a survey, and then obviously move forward with that. But being entrenched in the community, being a diverse police department, that way we are the best that we could possibly be within the confines that we have to work with. So it goes back to training, technology, having the proper resources, and just having the proper mix of officers on the police department.
Thank you. Joe, do you have any follow-ups? Do you have any follow-ups? Well, we want to thank you. We try to make this a little bit lighter than the first time, and try to hit some key points and ask some questions that we had some questions on. So we want to thank you very much for being part of the process, and thank you.
No, again, thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is my fault. I'm sorry. Is there anything that you'd like to say? Sorry about that. That's
Okay.
my fault.
And I jumped the gun, because I...
Yeah, no, yeah. Anything that you'd like to
I
say?
appreciate the board having me down for the second round. I think I'll be an asset to the community and to the police department, not knowing who the other two candidates are. I'm sure they're equally as qualified. But as the board has seen on my resume and the talks that we've had the last 2 times, I'm more of a well-rounded police chief. I've done it for 13 years now, come on 14. I guess I have other tools in my tool belt to obviously use as emergency management and town administrator. So I've come to the table with sights on from many different angles instead of just the police chief. So I think I have a few more things to bring to the town. The town I currently work for is very similar to this, so I'm not coming from a large agency, not knowing what truly community policing is. So I truly think I'd be an asset for your community, and to bring us to the next level, whatever the town wishes that to be. And again, it was a very professional process. It was great. Again, kudos to Chris. She was always following up constantly. If she is the type of employee that you all have working for you, then if I'm lucky enough to become an employee, it'll be great working with her and the other employees, because to me that was really the true sign that the town really has things together and they're a professional department, which is where I would like to work. So again, thank you very much, and I appreciate the three of you and obviously the residents in the town that really care about who the next police chief is going to be.
No, thank you for saying that. But
Thank you.
It was important for us to make sure that we did it right and we did it serious, so thank you.
No, again, thank you very much. I appreciate the gentleman.
Take care, Art.
Thank you. I just got a bad hand, sorry.
Thanks, Art. Good to see you.
Thanks for coming in. Please. Hello.
Good evening, how are you?
Hi, Ken. How are you?
Anderson, how you doing?
Good.
I've got a packet together of just a few different items that we might get into tonight.
Okay.
That might kind of tell you about me a little bit. Mr. Chairman, how are you?
Good. How are you? What bad right hand? Sorry, I'm not being disrespectful.
Good evening.
How are you? Good to see you.
This is basically a continuation, and some new questions, but some things we'd like to follow up on. It's not going to be as extensive as our first interview.
Right.
Which probably lasted, I think, at least an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Which was great, and one of the reasons why you're here is because you did a great job. We're just going to ask a series of questions, and then we'll follow up if you'd like to say something at the end.
Fantastic.
Okay. Joe?
Ken, I think when we, our first discussion, we talked about the opioid crisis a little bit. Obviously exists in all of the most surrounding communities, and I'd be naive to think it does not exist in West Newbury. How would you approach this issue?
Well, I did look up the stats for West Newbury for last year, and I saw 0 on the form for opiate.
Doesn't that mean it's not here, though?
Doesn't mean, that's what I was just going to say. It doesn't mean that it's not here. As the chief of police in the town of Wenham, and also through personal interactions with different folks that I know, I've seen one too many kids die as a result of this. I'm a firm believer of being in the schools, visible, my offices to be visible in the schools, and getting to know kids on a first-name basis. One of the things that I noticed recently is they talk about community policing, and they show a picture of an officer standing there and kids listening to him, which is all nice. And then there's another picture underneath where the officer is kneeling down. That's what we need to do. I read the entire report, the President's Task Force report on 21st century policing. I would encourage everybody to read it. And what they get into is procedural justice and treating people with respect, treating the young folks with respect, and if we can get down to their level so they can relate to us and we can relate to them, a lot of these things will be diminished. Now, I do have a strong background in narcotics investigations. Back in the early 90s, there was a lot of enforcement. Today is having kids make the right decisions. And just to follow up, what Mr. Kemper had asked, Chairman Kemper had asked in the first meeting about the DARE program. Talking a little about I did do my homework on the DARE program.
We'll get to that later.
Okay,
if you want.
all right. But that's what they're gearing towards now. So any program that we can get into the schools, I think is going to help us in the long run to combat this.
Okay. How would you incorporate social media into West Newbury policing, or should you?
Absolutely. I think social media is very important. I established it in the department I had before. I'm very involved, and I've actually established it at Suffolk University Police, where I am now. Myself and the crime prevention officer, we do the social media. I think it's very important to educate the community of what's going on a regular basis. What we do as a police department, who we are as a community, and what we're going to do together, both as police and community, to work together to solve problems. If something needs to be alerted, we're going to let them know about it. One thing that I did in Wenham was I had my own television show. I didn't, the police department did, in which I served as the host. And it was an incredible hit with the community. The senior citizens loved it. A number of people in the Rotary Club used to come up to me and say, you know, when's your next episode? So whether it's social media, a television show, I also did safety matters articles in the newspaper, all educating the public, so it's all important.
Would you use it as an investigative tool?
Absolutely. Actually, what we used to do as well is we would tape the shows, and I would bring in experts, if you will, whether it be domestic violence or any type of, you know, whether it be opiate addiction or whatever it was, and then we would use it in our own department for a training tool later on. So, and we'd also use it investigative techniques as well.
Can you talk about the procedure you would use to both hire somebody and also to promote somebody?
Yes. Well, in my past life and in the life I have now, I'm a firm believer in background, checking the background of individuals. Policing in this day and age, with the scrutiny that police is under and everything, it's hard to find good, solid candidates. There's a lot of people out there that'll apply, but I believe in a strong educational component, but also a good background check into the individual. But the one thing that I'm really looking for is dedication and commitment and drive for the job itself. And that usually includes an extensive interview process, which I have done in the past and I do now where I am.
And the promotion part?
The promotion part, we utilize assessment centers. It can be good, it can be bad, depending on you know, if you know your individuals, it can kind of bring out certain characteristics of your employees. In Wenham, we used kind of a modified assessment. It was more along this line, where it was a series of interview technique, you know, interviews, and also we also did the written assignments and things like that, and it worked pretty well.
Okay. I think when we met the first time, you talked about a tough budgeting season that you experienced once or twice at
Yes.
10 or 12% reduction in
Yes.
in your budget. So can you just elaborate, describe your interactions with the selectmen, the FinCom, town administrator during that process?
Yes, absolutely. So it was the 08-09 year, tough fiscal times. We had 11.7% budget that we had to decrease our police department by. It wasn't just us. It was the town administrator's budget. It was the fire department's budget. It was the DPW budget. The town administrator, the selectmen, I'd like to think looked at me as a leader at that time because the budget was really broken down. I got into that last time when I spoke to you about our transparency. And we did so many hours late at night and I remember leaving the police station after midnight when we finally decided what we were going to cut. Unfortunately, through attrition, we lost a position that year. We went down to 9 officers. We did not get a police cruiser that year. The town and myself in consolidation, we reduced our training, which I really, really felt firm about, that training is paramount to success, and especially in this day and age. But what we did was we went with an online component. We kept all of our mandatory training. We went, the firearms, criminal law, motor vehicle law, everything that's mandated, we continued to do. Sexual harassment, all the mandated things we continued to do. But it was the extra stuff that we really were a high-trained police department. We did a lot of good things as far as extra training, sending people off to additional trainings, and we cut those out for the next year or two. And the department felt it, there was no question. And what ended up happening with the cruisers, we didn't replace any cruisers, and we were already in a difficult situation because our cruisers were already depleted. So what ended up happening was there was a domino effect, and through the years, we ended up needing to replace 4 out of our 5 cruisers. We ended up taking them off the road. Wasn't a good situation.
Probably took a while to get them back on track. Archie?
Ken, having looked at West Newbury, what types of community policing do you think might work here?
Well, when you say community policing, and I know we talked about, going to the schools, talking to the kids at the parks, talking to the business owners, all of those things are important. But my philosophy in community policing is really every day. Not just doing programs. The programs are something that you do, but actually following up with individuals. I think I talked about that last time. I called it the wow factor, and that's something that is learned through our everyday training that we do. That we follow up with residents. When there's an investigation that needs to be done, or somebody's involved in a motor vehicle accident, the officers pick up the phone. How you doing? How you making out? It could be a small thing to one of us, but it's a big deal to that person on the other side of the phone. So community policing wise, there are a number of different initiatives that I would take. Of course, looking at the school program, I just want you to know, in full disclosure, I did reach out to the superintendent of schools. I do not know him, just to get an idea of what's going on in our school district, how we can work together. I also talked to the COA director. Glad to see that she's doing a number of initiatives that I'm familiar with, like National Night Out and the Triad program. We didn't have a National Night Out, but we had a thing called Wenham Days. So all of those type of things. In Wenham, I hosted a hometown idol program along with the Rotary Club, in which we got kids to interact with the police department, and we actually played music with them, things like that, to get to know these kids. When I grew up, in the packet, there's an individual that I wrote an editorial about. His name was Richie Landers, and he was a police officer in Danvers. And he was my mentor, one of my first mentor. And he would be at all the ball games talking to the athletes and things like that. I spent a lot of time on the sidelines, so he was there, and I got to know him on a personal level. And what he ended up doing was, he was the reason why I became a police officer, because of our interaction together. When I looked at him, I never saw a gun. I never even thought of him as a police officer. It was just somebody that I trusted. So my philosophy is, in community policing, get to know the residents, get to know the kids in town, and get to that level. And if I can give back what he gave to me, this job's worth it to me.
We've probably talked that in our previous questions, but so that the public here can hear some of it too. Give us an example or two of some innovative policing programs that you've implemented.
Well, I'll never forget it. It was 2005. I had just taken over as acting chief, and I think I was 3 days in. And I had a fatal accident. A 39-year-old woman was out planting a flower for her mother, who had just passed away. She was an Indian woman, lovely lady. and she was planting this flower, and a 15-year-old girl came careening around the corner on Pleasant Street and killed her instantly. It was the beginning of July. And it was one of the biggest tragedies we ever had in town. The girl fled. We finally got her. We placed her under arrest. But what ended up happening from that was the entire Pleasant Pond group or committee was upset because we had a series of issues down at the beach that was prolonged for a while. And when I took over, I established a quality of life officer. We got together with the committee, we talked about the issues, we went there and we solved problems with them. And it was a very much a success. So that was one thing that we did. If you go down Pleasant Pond now, there was a lot of the problems with outsiders coming in and stuff like that. We worked with the committee, we worked with the town to solve the problem. That was one area. We conducted a business liaison program where we went around to businesses and checked with the store owners, just to have a conversation. And that went a long way as well. The other thing that we did, like I said, working with Rotary and Hometown Idol, we did that, of course. And then we would check on residents during storms. We would go above and beyond, and we actually would establish a list of every resident, and it wasn't just senior citizens, it was residents in general that had issues. So those are the kind of community policing initiatives. Street Smarts program, pardon my English here, Street Smart program. So we had some issues at intersections. So I said, well, let's solve the problem, put a police officer at the intersections of these crosswalks and see what's going on, and it really went a long way with the community. There's others, but they're up here, but I can't get them out right now.
No, that's good. The population of Massachusetts and West Newbury both are aging. How do you think that's going to affect police activities? What needs to be changed in policing?
As far as
just because the population is changing, so crime is going to change, or the needs of what the police have to do is going to change.
Well, we have to adopt with the times, just like we are adapting as a police generation now. And we have to be exactly the way that I was trained. When I read that study, they came out with all of these things that you're supposed to do for policing to be effective. And one of those is working with senior citizens, and we're very effective with the older population when I worked in Wenham. And I think that working and changing what we need to do with the times, we will do that.
Obviously, this is a small town, small police force, not too many officers. How would you see yourself in terms of behind the desk versus being out in a cruiser or at the Little League field?
Lead by example. One thing that I want to do is empower my officers, look at what they have for specialties, and work with them. I will be out in the field with them. Of course, as the chief of police, there are times where you are behind the desk, but I also like to be out in the field and lead by example as well. So I'll be a chief that will be seen in the community. I think I told you before that I didn't live in Wenham, I live in Groveland. But everybody in Wenham thought I lived there, and it was because I was so involved in the community. I will be down at the parks, I'll be talking to folks, so they get to know the new chief. If I'm lucky enough to get this position, it's very, very important that they get to know who I am.
Okay, thank you.
Ken, describe your philosophy of how a SRO could integrate into our school system. This goes back to what we had talked to before.
I also did some homework on this, talking to the school superintendent, and I found out that there is an office space within the schools, which Groveland, West Newbury, and Merrimack Police, I guess, share the office space. So there's a presence within the school district. I did not know that until I talked to him. I think it needs to be a lot more than that. School resource officers need to be engaged. One thing that I do right now that has been an unbelievable success is I go into classrooms in the university setting, and I speak to freshman students about policing. I talk about ethics. I talk about domestic violence. I talk about sexual assaults. And it has been a very rewarding experience in that at the end of, and I've done it 3 years now, where at the end of the classes, there's at least 1 or 2 kids that come up to me and talk to me at the end of class and tell me about an issue. And that's what I'd like to see in the high schools, or any schools for that matter, that the officer gets up and talks to the students, along with faculty. And that's the other thing, talking to faculty, planning in case of an emergency, getting together with the regional group, whether it be Groveland and Merrimack, and talking to each other. I think working with Groveland and Merrimack, I have a history of really working well with building coalitions, working with each other, and I think that my presence here would be very valuable to the school district and to this town.
Good. With the understanding that you are not completely familiar with the facets of the present situation, what types of new training would you institute with the officers?
Well, one of the most innovative new training, and you want to call it innovative, but it's real simple, everyday training. You have a video, or you supply, actually, there's something free that you can get through Lexipol. I invite you to check it out when you have a chance. It's called lexipol.com. And there's an individual in there by the name of Gordon Graham. And he's he's known nationally for his police techniques and training and things like that. And this is something I've instituted recently at Suffolk University. And he gives a tip every day to the officers. So in between shifts, they're going to do all their regular training, all the, their mandatory trainings, their extra training, and I don't know all the budgetary items and things like that. But any training that we can get to them, especially in a small town, is a good thing. But everyday training goes a long way. So every day they get something to think about before they go on patrol.
Something that I think one of the things that stuck out to us during this process was that policing isn't going to be the same in the future. It's, the policing that we knew of our grandfathers or even growing up, it's going to be different. Can you explain your philosophy of how policing is going to be or how it should be different in the future?
Well, see, in reading that 21st Century report, they're telling us what we should be doing as police departments. And if you read the report, it's everything that I've been doing since 1985. For the public, so that you know, I got on Danvers Police as a dispatch intern in 1985, but I came on Wenham Police in 1987. And everything that's been passed down to me, we're already doing what they're telling us to do to be successful. So I think in the Northeast, we're a little bit ahead of the game. I think you're going to see a kinder, gentler police philosophy, but I'm already doing that. I've done that my entire career. I shared a story with you about, my own grandfather. I responded to my own grandfather who had died. Well, I was the first responder, but I became a victim within a matter of seconds. So to me, I want to be there for the public when they have their tragic events. And in a town like this, unattended deaths, sorry to be morbid, all those type of things that happen in these small towns, people need somebody to lean on, especially when their family might be in Florida or something, and they look to the police department. Those are the type of things. So if you're asking me what I think the future will be
or should,
I'm hoping it's going to be what I know and I've been doing for 30 years.
Okay. Joe, do you have any follow-up?
Actually, I do. So when you were appointed chief in Wenham, obviously there was somebody in that role prior. That vacancy was created because of?
What happened was this. They were looking for a successor. There was a successor plan at the time in 2005. The chief at the time, he had announced his retirement. They weren't really sure when or what have you. And then within that year period, well, I should go back. They made me deputy police chief as the success, and it was in my contract that I would serve as the next police chief. And that's when I took over, was in 2005. So, yeah, 2004, I was deputy chief. 2005, I became police chief. So there was the town said, okay, do we have somebody within? They found someone within. They had a process. I made deputy chief and then elevated me to chief of police.
So he retired?
Yes.
Okay. And speaking of retiring, you said that your retirement from Wenham was primarily your daughter. Any other reasons besides that, or that was it, or?
Well, it was a...
I'm not minimizing that, I'm just...
No. Full disclosure, my daughter, who's 25 years old now, knew one of my reserve officers, and they started to date.
Yep. You said
Well, I knew it was going to be, I'm saying, this might be an issue. Well, when they got engaged, I said, this is really going to be an issue. Long story short, I was teaching at Endicott College, adjunct professor, and the director of campus safety opened up. And I talked to my wife. We did our homework. We looked at the numbers, and I ended up taking that position.
So it was a combination of the two things, is what you're saying?
Right.
Okay.
Position opening up and the fact that your daughter was dating one of your reserve officers.
Well, they were not only dating, but they got engaged, which...
Did they get married?
Yes,
I never
they
did that.
I
never. We never asked that
We
question.
didn't hear the whole story.
Yes, they did get married, and I am the proud grandfather of I think he's 5 months old now.
Oh, congratulations.
So,
Wow.
thank you.
Yeah.
So I know you work at Suffolk University, and prior to that you were at Endicott. So in your policing career, you were with, not only, bad word, you were with Wenham for quite a long time, and then the only other department you were with was Danvers, right?
Yeah, Danvers was a civilian position. I was it started out as an intern, and I worked as a civilian dispatcher, waiting to get on the civil service list, but then ended up going to Wenham.
No reserve officers anywhere else.
I'm sorry?
No auxiliary or any. You
Well, actually-
Danvers, and then you went to Wenham.
Actually, I applied at Topsfield and Wenham, and I got on the same day,
Yeah, you said that earlier.
and
Yeah.
but I ended up taking Wenham.
Okay. All right. That's it.
You have any follow-up? Okay. Well, this part, so the interview portion is over. Is there anything you'd like to say?
Well, I just want to follow up about the DARE program. So we had
Yeah.
talked
Yep.
a little bit about the DARE program.
Mhm.
I did look into it. I talked to the executive director at DARE in Massachusetts,
Mhm.
and I was correct that there was a time where there was a lull, and not a lot of departments were doing it. And it
Yep.
was mostly because of grant funding.
Mhm.
It's now picking back up. They've started a new program, mostly because of the opiate issue. And they have a new program called Keeping It Real. And I would be open, if I was to get this position, open to looking at that down the road for the department. Of course, we would have to have a lot of homework before we'd make that ultimate decision.
No, you answered it correctly, because there isn't a DARE program anymore. It was one of those questions that we wanted to make sure people were relevant.
Right,
You
right.
know what I mean? So you answered it correctly.
Yeah, they are picking it back up in Topsfield, Middleton, Danvers. It's on its way back, so it's a good
Good.
thing.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming in.
Any other questions
Anything
for
else
us?
you want to say? or
I just want to say this, that I have strong communication skills, both written and in verbal. I have a strong ability to build coalitions with different groups. I have the ability to create positive change in an organization, and I'm fair, open, and extremely approachable. And I think that's important if I'm to serve as your next police chief. And that's something that I really want to do.
Great.
Great.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
coming
very
in.
much for
Thank you
coming
very
in.
much. Thank you.
Thanks. No, yeah, I just got a bad hand.
Thank you, Ken. Nice to see you.
Yep. Thanks. I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
I'm going to take a 2-minute break.
Sure.
You mind?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
We're going to take a 2-minute, oh, no, we're not. Does anybody have any questions about that? Anybody about I said I was going to ask questions.
Does that, any public comment?
Public comment or questions? I'm sorry about that. About policing. Sure.
Yeah.
You don't have to get up as long as you use the, you have to use, but people are at home watching.
You have to use the microphone. Please, and
We
please,
can hear you here, but that's for people at home.
and please, everybody, first state your name.
State your name, please.
My name is Deborah Green, and I just wanted to say I was impressed with their sensitivity
Good.
integrated into the
Thank you. Mr. LaSala, did you have a question, sir?
Yes, my name is Bill LaSala, live on Whetstone Street, and I also was very impressed by the candidate for police chief. Did you ever give any thought of the police wearing body cams? You know,
No, I honestly have never given that any thought.
You know, it seems like that's an ongoing thing. A lot of communities are doing that. Having people, you know, think maybe it'd be a good idea. Environment, how police are always getting put in the middle of situations, and this would be another tool they can have.
Yeah, I would agree that it's another tool. I've never thought about it because I've never even thought there was a need for it in this community. And I would think, you know, there's so many other needs that I would want to put resources where they belong. But if we felt there would be a need for it, I would definitely talk about it. And if we could police better by using them, I would definitely consider it.
You know, how we look into the future, how
Yep.
everything's gonna evolve.
Yep.
Definitely, it's gonna be more communications, how well we conduct ourselves as far as police officers and the general public. And this is just be another tool,
Mm-hmm.
the right image of what's going on to the public.
Correct. Yeah. Did you want to talk about that? No? No? Okay. Anything else? Anyone else?
I guess Jen Sully's dealing is, more of a comment maybe. I heard every one of them talk about the need to work with the schools and the need for safety and how the schools have a safety program that they've been implementing. One of the big frustrations that I hear from people, and it's people that don't want to go on the record about it, is the fact that every time you go to, and I can attest that this is true for me too, every time you go down to the high school or the middle school, those doors are open.
Mhm.
And not always the front door, but the side doors.
Mhm.
And at any time during the day, that can be the case, or after school.
Mhm.
And I think my understanding of how this works is people are slow to change, but
Mhm.
it's disconcerting when, I know that I think they do a lot better job at the Page School, and those are elementary school kids, but they're all kids, middle and high school too. And I don't know that that's anything specifically that you would ask them, but I wanted to
Them
take
whom?
an opportunity to say right now that that's a concern that I have as a
And-
parent.
Well,
of kids.
And we heard that in the initial interviews, that was brought up, and I think that's something that we're going to have to work with the superintendent and the school department, with our,
Especially the
with
two-
our,
I think the
They talk
police,
about how great that program, that work was, and it was great in theory, but I don't see it being implemented.
I think the police are aware of it, and it's.
And the current chief of police is aware of it and frustrated by it. And the police department is totally frustrated by it. Just by the interviewing process, the two local people that are totally frustrated by it and want to try to make it work.
Like sometimes
They-
it's the people within that are
Exactly.
messing up the system rather than
They
the,
don't wanna have to
And
the
we've heard,
police
long way around.
say, shut the door, and then someone comes and puts a stick,
block it.
Yeah.
a stick
Yeah.
there,
and
so they
we've heard,
can't.
and we've heard the locks are antiquated and they're old and they don't have the money to fix them. And, you know, if we close the doors anyways, they would just push them closed and it would cost X amount of dollars. I heard it was a money factor also. But
But it can't be a money factor.
before this process started, so in October, the chief of police and I had a lengthy discussion about this, about we need to continually do this and do this and do this, and they're down there every day trying to do this.
Checking it and then reporting it.
Yes,
Checking
they
it
are.
and reporting it.
Yes, they are. Every day.
Yeah.
Which we could use those resources elsewhere if we could get a sound policy down there that they could ensure the kids would be safe. We don't have that problem up at the Page School because it's locked, they have an entry system, there's the bell and the camera. But no, that is a major thing that the whole department works on every day.
Okay, thank you.
any other comments from the public on the police chief?
I'm going to take 2 minutes.
Okay.
But one thing I'd like to do is, we have people here for the whetstone, so we're going to take that out of, we'll do that next in a minute, so you guys don't have to wait anymore, even though it's farther down.
And, I guess one other question I had.
Glenn,
Sorry.
don't step on your
In
phone.
terms of the deliberations, how soon will that be posted? How will we know when those are happening in the public?
We'll call you.
I know you call me.
We don't know. We have all different scheduling.
So check the website or how, for postings or,
Yeah.
you know, for people, just the public if they want to come to the deliberation part.
We'll put it on the website. We'll put it, yeah.
Thank you.
Night, John.
How are you? Good. I think December's gonna be our date, December. Yes. Oh, no, I don't. You go away? Oh, take care. Bye-bye. Oh, I see, I see what you're saying. Yes, yes. Definitely. Oh, good, oh, good. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's fine.
Gary, the curb on my neighbor's thing looks good, yes. Was he happy? Yeah?
She's good at the community service.
Oh, yeah?
Fabulous, John, that's great, thank you.
Good night, John.
So I usually try to get a bunch up so we can put toppers in for a day and get them all done.
What, I know it comes heated, but can you not do it as, if it gets like 20 degrees, can you not put it down? Or how cold does it have to be so you can't?
That type of work.
Any day, really? Oh, okay.
It's better to do it when it's warm and stick to it.
Right. But it can't, if it's cold, you can still do it? Oh.
Within reason.
Well, obviously if there's ice, you can't do it, but yeah.
Actually had to load up extra hot so it lasts.
How do they heat it up? Do they have like a burners or what?
So they have all these different hoppers with the different materials. They put it all in a drum, heated.
Okay.
Gas. Natural gas, propane, whatever heats this drum up, it's heated, and they put a car in it. This much sand, this much.
So does the truck have heat when it's delivering it, or sometimes, does the truck actually heat it or not? Not really?
So you already told us that.
Most of them, it's just stays on. It's a pretty big thing.
Yeah. I had never met him, Gary, in 25 years. This is the first year I've. No, he always rented it out. He used to live here like in the 70s, and he lived there, but not for years and years and years. And I've never met him.
Okay, let's go. Need a battery?
Is the light supposed to be red or green?
It's supposed to be green.
Mine's green.
Yeah, we have a new battery.
Yeah, they do.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the intersection of Whetstone and Sullivan's Court. At a previous Selectmen's meeting, we went by the recommendation of our fire and police chief on properly getting a fire truck or a safety apparatus down there and take a left and to get into the new development that's happening at the end of Sullivan's Court. Archie and I went down last week and met with some residents because they thought it was a little excessive and it was affecting their quality of life and their ability to be able to get in and get out of their homes if they had guests over. It was just a little bit overkill, they thought. So Archie and I went down with the residents and looked at it. and we tried to come to some compromise and some reasonable thing that we came that it would be 25 feet on every single road of the intersection. Thereabouts, you know what I mean? 25 feet, they can't park 25 feet. So going down Whetstone Street, you can't park 25 feet here, can't park 25 feet here. And then you take a left on the Sullivan's Court, you can't park 25 feet here, 25 feet there. And then when you're down Sullivan's Court, you can't park 25 feet there, you can't park 25 feet there on both sides.
And the 25 feet from the pole that's on the, across from the intersection.
Yeah, across, yeah, exactly. So that's what we kind of talked about. You weren't there, you had to work, you wanted to be there, I know that. Is there anything you want to ask of us or talk?
Well, I mean, the only comment that I would make is when we first established the no parking signs, the question in my mind was public safety, and my question was to the fire chief, how many feet does he need to turn his truck into Sullivan's Court? So, I mean, I'd like to, before we make any actual decision, know from the fire chief what that is, because I have no idea. Is that 20 feet? Is it? I doubt it's 100 feet, but I don't know what the number is. So, absent knowing that, I'm not really prepared to vote on it.
Well, for one thing, that just going down there, the actual signs, the signposts that were put up actually impede the turning radius because they stick out a little bit more than the.
You'd have to hit a sign to turn.
Without the signs there, some of the signs there, there's actually a bigger turning radius than there would be with the existing signs there. We saw that.
Mm-hmm.
And to make the chance that it would happen would be extremely rare unless a pumper was going to connect to the hydrant down further down Whetstone Street. But if you were coming out of Sullivan's Court to make a left, there's an existing sign there. Am I correct? And so that one actually, there would be more room to make the left turn to get to the hydrant if those signs weren't there, because it just is. It's blocking some of the there's a flat, non-grassed area that simply adds a bigger turning radius if the sign wasn't there. So we thought it was reasonable. Your point is well taken. Would either of you like to comment on the fact that you saw a truck make the turn?
A fire truck?
Yeah, well, I've had a chimney fire and they came down. I mean, that wasn't any issue, but,
Can you need to talk louder and,
tell us the whole story. Was it the ladder truck or one of the other trucks?
I don't remember. I just know I had a chimney fire and they came and they went up on the roof and they checked the chimney for me. This goes back a while. But we've never had a problem. There's never been a problem, but the double posts that are put in now, the person driving that fire truck has a choice. With the post there, they can run the post over, if this is a true issue, the width. Or without the post there, they can run my lawn over. So, which would you rather do? And second of all, when I was at the planning board, because of the development that's going in, one of the discussions that the planning board had with Mr. Newbury was that there was a lot of talk about widening the end of Sullivan's Court, where it came onto Whetstone, and they concluded that if they just followed the natural breakdown of the road, like we kind of just pave that, make it
Google hasn't got
a
that
little
yet.
cleaner, that was supposed to, I mean, that was the whole purpose, my understanding was for safety, was to widen that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can move this. I don't know, Gary. I don't want to.
so you want us? Can we pave the corner there at your house?
My understanding was that they decided that they were going to follow the like if you look at that corner, it's kind of crumbly.
The one closest to your house. He was going to.
We looked at that.
Yeah, he was going to follow. He was going to follow that. Remember? And we thought it would be. I think the bottom line was it was going to be too intrusive to your home, so they didn't want to do it that way. Isn't that true?
No.
Yeah.
No, I didn't want them to. I questioned
Okay, but let's get back to the fight, let's get back to the signs, because I don't want to...
Because the gentleman was concerned about the width, and that's the only reason I'm bringing this up. There was discussion at the planning board meeting about gently following the curve of Sullivan's Court onto Whetstone.
I think we all believe that we can't park at the intersection. All of us believe that. Now it's just about how many feet. And we believe, and I think, I mean, when Joe gets it, we're going to vote, and probably Joe is too. I'm not saying he's not going to, but he wants to get more research. That's a little excessive right now. Okay?
Yeah, we all agree with that.
Okay, we all agree that it's a little excessive. Okay? So we're going to bring it down. And we talked about 25 feet. Okay? And I think he just wants to feel that he's do his due diligence and make sure he checks with the fire chief that 25, and he might say, you know, we could get 30, or we get 20, or I only need 20, you know, or 25. But I think that's what we all feel comfortable about, and we'll take some of those signs down at the end.
There's 12 or 13 signs right now, with 100 feet of no parking in all directions.
Right, and
Right.
we
And
totally think that's
Okay, so
unnecessary.
we're all in agreement with that.
And I think one of the questions that you raised was, you know, what's changed? I think obviously what's changed is what's going in at the end of your street.
Yeah, but every house on that street is worth saving, just like
Oh, sure.
the new houses.
Yeah, but when you have more,
But
there's
that
more.
increased the visibility of the corner. The construction increased the visibility of the corner. So I'm just trying to answer what changed. That's all.
Right, but I'm just saying that, you know, we want the fire trucks to be able to fight any fire, not just the.
Oh yeah, of course,
at the end of the
of course,
road.
of course.
So, at any rate, I'm very comfortable with the 25-foot, you know, distance from the pole, and that what we had talked about, hopefully this is what will come out, is having 2 signs, not 12 or 13 signs, on that pole saying no parking within 25 feet of the corner.
Isn't there a lot? What's the present law now? You can't park 25 feet of an intersection? I don't even know that.
What's logical, I mean, you kind of should.
It might be 20.
Is it? Okay, it is what it is.
So
Okay.
we're saying, okay, as neighbors, good neighbors, we'll live with 25, if it's even if the law
Yeah.
is right. You know what I
Mr.
mean?
Lasala?
There's just a couple of things Deb hit on. When Mr. Neves presented his package, he presented a plan that he was going to widen part of Whetstone Street at that corner and remove that pole that was across the street, so there'd be a wider turn, so he could come down with the trucks and be an easier intersection.
You're still gonna do that. You're gonna widen it 2.5 feet, 100 feet either direction of that pole.
That's not going to happen until afterwards.
Till after they're all.
But I thought that pole was supposed to be also come out of that spot. If the pole goes out of there, why are we even having this discussion? You got all the room in the world. The pole's gone.
I don't think he's not moving the
I don't think that's the plan.
But I know that was part of his discussion.
Right.
Well, there was a ton of things part of the discussion, like, you know, paving on your land and, it was not your land, but the right-of-way, and it was just a little too much of encroachment. But everything gets part of the discussion, but the final is that. So I think we're all in agreement. So we're all going to work, and we're going to take some signs down. And so let's Joe, I want to respect Joe and let him talk to the fire department himself and have a discussion with it, and can we take some down?
We take them all down. I'll just get one sign and put it on the pole across the street, no parking within 25 feet of the intersection.
Well,
Not yet.
Wait till we
Yeah.
find the exact number, yeah.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
We
we'll
can
get the
have
number.
we can have an electric sign that changes the number every.
Yeah, that's what we like for that.
Okay, and then during Thanksgiving and all that, when you're going to have people over, we'll talk to the police, you can park there. Because that's what was one of your concerns, that you're going to have people over on Thanksgiving, and then nobody's going to be able to park anywhere.
Can I say one more?
Yeah.
Is it Joe?
Yes.
So the other issue concern was what was more safe, and in terms of Whetstone is a wider street, there's an area for cars to park there, but when cars are parked on Sullivan's Court, there's less room, so cars on that street are parked more in the street. So there's a lot of reasons why it makes sense.
But when you park, just park on one side.
Absolutely, that was.
I mean, Thanksgiving, one side. Okay, thank you. Mr. McCarron, do you have anything that new you want?
Do you have a public hearing?
Yes. Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
You don't have any good news? Can you post a public hearing for our next meeting? You have to post it. How many, 14 days in advance? 10?
At least 10.
Yeah, can you post a public hearing for that? Because we have to have it, do we have to do it another in a public hearing to make it legal? That's what he just said. I didn't realize that, but now we have to have another public hearing and do it during a public hearing to change it back. So it's going to be posted for next meeting on the 30th.
If that's the, so how do you post? I'm sorry, I was putting my coat on.
What, love?
You're talking about Whetstone Street, you have to have a public hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if the signs are down, then they can't enforce your parking if there's signs. We'll take the
She just has
signs
to
down and
post a
you'll be
meeting.
fined for all of it.
They
Yeah.
just have to put it as part of the meeting, that's all.
Just take the signs down and then or during the public hearing, we'll decide what signs are going up. We have this electronic one you plug in it. Do you have a good extension cord? Because we could just put one of those in.
Get solar cells.
There you go.
But just for clarity, so I should come back for the public hearing?
If you want to.
If you want, you can come to every meeting.
Well, I know that, but I mean in terms of.
Yes, we're going to vote on this on November, we're going to vote on this on November 30th. So, and we have to post another public hearing to legally do it. So we're going to vote on it on November 30th, so I would be here if you want to be here.
Okay.
And it will be the first thing on the agenda, and hopefully we'll be out of here in 5 minutes. You won't have to wait that night. It'll be the first thing at 7 o'clock.
That'll make up for tonight.
Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It was very interesting.
Well, thank you, yeah.
Thank you for coming in.
I mean, listen, you actually had a relatively good one. Most of them were talking about stop signs and parking signs. Okay, let's, this draft of the use of facilities policy and procedures.
As you can see, I mean, I know you guys were at the meeting.
Yep.
They made a lot of the changes
Yep.
that we had recommended in there.
They did.
They really did.
So.
What, more concerns that
No,
you have?
I
Is they're
think-
going tomorrow and I'm going to the meeting, so if you have any concerns
You know,
on our behalf, and I want to, if you feel comfortable about this, because then I'm going to tell them too that we're not going to do our own gym.
we're not gonna do our own gym.
Because I said that
Oh.
at the meeting, that because of our lease, we can determine who uses the Page School or not.
Okay, well, they included that in the draft, basically, is that anything in the policies don't supersede the rights in the leases
I
and
saw
the
that.
regional agreements,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
So
but-
basically, it's status quo.
But they're the ones who manage it now, you know what I mean? So we're not going to tell them, and
Again.
we're going to, what I want to go there and just say, basically status quo, they're going to give the permission and the use of facilities forms for the Page School, not us.
Right.
We're not going to give them a list and say, hey, these are the people we want to use, and they have no say on it. I prefer, for now, yeah.
Don't give up the right indefinitely.
Depends on the fee schedule.
Yeah, for now. We feel comfortable,
Yeah, and I think the fee schedule, as they did, seemed to be a little bit more reasonable. It defines.
but
the
they
difference.
took everything out.
Yeah, they took everything out.
They,
except
they,
that
they changed,
Everything,
yeah.
yeah, everything that we said don't do
They
on that
changed the
respect, they did.
32 to 40 an hour.
Which is fine.
Which is fine, because they explained that.
Yeah, we understood
But then
that.
they took everything else out.
It's up to their discretion.
Yeah, I mean, they did it, even that I had the constitutional question on, I think that they have addressed that by saying that, you know, giving it to the core requirements of their educational, which you can, at that point, you know, not discriminate, but basically.
But you can make
give a
choices.
priority to.
Yeah, you can make choices.
To see that those things are done, and that actually has been supported, so.
Okay, you feel comfortable with it?
Well, you know.
As comfortable as you can.
Yeah, I mean, they addressed the points we raised.
They just wanted us to go away.
I don't know about you two. I know me. I think they still like you guys. Gary, the Page School, roof inspection? Or roof, what's going on up there? Can you, yeah.
Yeah, I gave you guys that report about the roof there a while back.
Yes.
And what we've done so far is we needed to do an infrared inspection of it to see how far the water's penetrated into the insulation. And they're working up the report and the scope of work, what has to be done to repair it.
This is all guaranteed, there's no cost to the town?
Well, you gotta have, what is?
The paid school. I heard there was a leak.
That's correct. Well,
Was
that's
thi-
correct, but what's
the
happened was one of the contractors, which we believe it's the general contractor, made some penetrations to the roof and didn't do it properly.
Perfect.
And he's saying no. So what we're doing is, we're getting we had the inspection done, we did the infrared, he's gonna drop a scope of work, we're gonna get a cost from him for an approved contractor, we're gonna give the contractor an opportunity to fix it. If you don't fix it, we'll either fix it and we'll have to legally go after somebody.
No,
I can't leave it, I gotta
No, I
work
understand,
on
I
it.
understand, no, but,
Was this a new membrane roof or an old one?
No, new, this is on.
This is one of the new ones.
One of the new roofs, in between the castle and the,
No, this is a new one.
in
That's
between the
what, that's
castle
what
and the
I didn't know
library.
if it was new
There
or
was 3
old.
windows that were put in a later date and some other equipment that was done on the roof.
So, I'm not sure about these two gentlemen, I want to make sure we document everything, have everything, and this person who's responsible for it, I want, if we have to, go after the money
Yeah,
legally.
well, let's-
That's what I want to do,
Yeah.
Excuse me.
right?
Yep.
You feel comfortable with that?
No, an initial repair, no. It could be as less as 2,500 or 25,000.
Whatever it is, it is.
Yeah.
Give him I think you're doing it in the right way. You give him the opportunity to make it right. If we found out that there was a neglect, and if he does not want to make it right, or she, whomever, I'm just not taking for granted it's a man,
Exactly.
then I want to make sure that they pay for it.
Right. And
Okay.
That's the way we're headed. So.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my note in there about that. Make a motion to accept the invoice warrants.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to approve the payroll warrant.
Second.
Discussion. Mike, the question on the holiday pay for the, in the police department,
Yes.
I missed that.
what's your thoughts?
I talked to Dave about it, and I sent an email over to the chief. Based on the selectmen's policy, it's pretty clear that if it would be a 6.4 comp
Mm-hmm.
to go along with the policy, and that's what we did.
Mm-hmm.
Had somebody called and said, or if we said it was mandatory, we needed to do this because of A, B, and C, I think that would have been a little different. But since it was the next day, it seemed to be a little bit already planned out, and we just went with the selectmen's policy, kind of the theory of the policy.
Well, the town's, yeah.
Yeah, the town's policy,
Yeah.
and that's what we did.
Okay. Fine. So everything's fine.
We did, I don't know if because we went back and forth on phone calls, we haven't really got it yet, but it'll come out in a couple of days. But I think that it was policy unless there was a reason to go beyond the policy.
You have anything?
No, I was just gonna make a snarky comment about one of the things that was spent on the library, but I won't.
That's probably better left
Yep.
unsaid.
Dave,
You've been hanging out too long with me, I
Yes,
think.
fine.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You abstain. Placing things on future agendas.
Yes, sir. Just because it hasn't come up in a couple of weeks. So where are we now on the whole air handler thing?
Okay, I can't speed date this meeting if we're gonna talk about air handlers.
What was it? We have the money. I contacted the architect.
I just want to make sure it moves along.
No.
It's got to.
No, I've contacted the architect, told him, And we're trying to set up a meeting, I think, before December to discuss how we want to do it, you know, so.
Okay,
Okay, good.
You guys want to be there?
yes,
Okay.
we do. So keep us informed of when it's going to be, so we have the opportunity to say yes or no, we want to be at the meeting.
Yep.
That feel good about you?
Yes.
And if it could be in the afternoon, you'd rather it?
Yeah, yep, late in the day.
Late in the day. Latest as you possibly can have it.
I'd like either next time or definitely the time after, so the 30th or December, whatever the date is, to ask the Finance Committee to come in and talk about fiscal 17 priorities with the Finance Director and the Finance Committee, so that we begin that discussion, since they'll be starting to put the budget together shortly
Can we do that in December?
Yeah, so the first in December.
Is that all right with you?
Yep. Next is...
No, is that all right with him?
Yeah,
Oh.
I mean, I was gonna send out an email because we're kind of in between meetings, just to see if anybody wanted to shoot me feedback. And I would kind of put that together in a memo out to the employees. I'm actually meeting with the FinCom tomorrow night. So I was gonna
Let's
let
make it
them know.
let's make it the second meeting in December. Is that all right with you? Or is that too late?
It's getting kind of late. That's like around Christmas.
Okay, let's make it the first meeting in December.
Okay. Next thing is, we had asked the department heads to have their goals for this fiscal year back to Chris on October 28th. So I'd like to review them at the next meeting. Not to go through every one of them, but kind of like we did last time, if there's anything that anybody wants to bring up.
Okay.
And then last one is, Ray Cook had sent us a note about their right of first refusal, so I think we should ask him to come in to discuss that with them.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we can't avoid it.
Oh, yeah. Should we? No, but we can. Literally.
I'll talk to him when he comes in if you want.
No, I'll talk to him.
So maybe we could schedule that for like December 14th, I think.
When?
The December meeting, December 14th, I think the date is.
Okay. But we can't, okay.
We can't what, guys?
Nothing. That's fine. You're right. No, you're right. I agree.
That's it.
Archie?
Well, whoever wants
maybe
to come. I
we
mean,
can find out.
He
now.
was
I'd
the one
like
that wrote the note, so that's why I said that.
just like to ask Mr. McCarron what's happening with the solar field, or will we know in a while?
Everything from the town side is done. The last thing we did is we gave them the Schedule Z, which was a breakdown of all the different bills. So now it's all into Amoresco. We're ready to switch it on. I mean, it should be on this month, actually. I mean, there's nothing
holding it back?
Holding it back. I think the only thing that might be holding it back a little bit is that they're doing some financing things that they want to, get done with regard to it. That's nothing to do with us at all. But
they're not holding it up, are they?
well, it's in the ball's in their court, because everything that we needed to do, we've done.
Right.
And so we're ready to switch it on and
Let's
start
talk
it
about
up.
it at a meeting.
We want to talk about, want to do it at the next meeting? About reports we got from Mike about salaries and overtime expenditures, up to date?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Joe will fill you in on that, till you're versed. He has got some questions and stuff, and well, we all do, but Joe still had, he wanted to, I think Archie, we just want some explanations, and so we all understand.
Okay.
I'll talk.
That it?
Yep.
Make a motion to go into executive session?
Did you do
Second.
correspondence?
Yeah.
What?
We accepted the correspondence. Joe,
Oh, wait a minute, hold it. Sorry.
wow, I just lied to you. Now I'm not gonna get all my Christmas gifts. Is something you wanted to talk about?
Yeah,
Which?
I don't know. I don't even know where it is now. Forget it.
Which one?
I don't know.
No, but it's right on the front.
Ray Cook I covered.
That was part of the correspondence.
Yeah.
We want to talk about the no parking? that what you want to talk about?
Oh, yes, that was it. Yes, yes, yes. The meditation center.
Mhm.
So the signs have been removed.
Mhm.
So I think, if Chris can send an email to the Conservation Committee and the
Open
Open
Space.
Space Committee, letting them know the signs are gone. So I think one of them wanted to post some trail signs or whatever.
Yep.
Open space and whatever?
Conservation.
Okay.
Oh, you already did
said
that? Never mind.
Never mind that, Chris. One less thing you have to do tomorrow. Lucky you.
Did they do it with telepathy?
No, but they left the post there. They took the sign down and left the post.
Okay.
No. We've been in communication with the people over the site and
whom?
the Insight meditation.
Got it.
So they removed the signs, which I asked them to do.
Yeah.
And they're going to meet with the Conservation Commission, because technically the Conservation Commission has the control and management of that, and also probably Open Space will be there too, sometime in December. And they'll talk about how,
You can't do what you can't do. Go meditate and sit with the Indian style, like, and meditate and get it all taken
it's a
care of.
great place, There you go.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
But you were going into executive session,
He said that
Yep, we
before.
go to executive session.
Yeah.
and you're not?
No, we are.
We
Okay,
are.
and what's the purpose?
You have yours? What's the purpose, Mike?
Do you want me to look it up?
No, I haven't.
I have it right here. MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A8, to consider or interview applicants for employment or appointment of a preliminary screening committee. If the chair designates, then open meeting will be detrimental effect in obtaining qualified applicants.
Yeah.
That's what it says.
You don't understand that? I love it when he goes, you didn't see his face when he goes, I
No,
saw
I heard
he
it
went-
in his voice.
It was like the Larry David, I saw what you wrote.
Yeah, that's why I asked,
So we're going into Larry David for non-con, going into Larry David. We're going into executive session for non-contractual contract negotiation. Say it again?
That isn't what was written.
Well, that's what we're going in for.
And you can do that even though you haven't listed what you're going in for?
Yes, yes, we can.
And you're not, to be clear, I just have to ask it, you're not planning on deliberating or talking about the police?
No,
Absolutely not.
I think that was on
It's
there.
carried over from the,
Yeah, because I think that's the same one, just in case we needed it, you know what I mean, more interviews and
I
stuff
just
like
want
that.
to just be clear that that's not what's happening.
This is
We're
what
gonna,
doing.
we're gonna schedule a meeting to do that.
Thank you.
We have to work out contract, if we're going to have a deliberation,
Uh-huh,
an open meeting to pick the chief.
right.
We're not going to deliberate in executive session about the chief. But we're being proactive that, because it doesn't matter who it is that we pick, we have to negotiate a contract so that we can present that to them when we pick that individual.
You're going to do that
So-
before you
Would-
deliberate rather than after.
So we want it ready to
Yeah.
go.
So we want it ready to go.
Got
So
it.
when we pick the person, we present them with a contract.
An
So we don't
offer.
like, okay, we pick you, but then we'll get back to you in a week and a half for the contract because we have to be all in the same room. So we want to be proactive
I hear it, okay.
because time's running out.
That's how we've done the whole process.
I'm not complaining, I just want to understand it. Yep,
So that's the purpose, not the one
Yes,
That-
that's the
I
purpose.
just read that.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I didn't even read it because I thought that's what we were doing all along because that's what I told you. Because we got some preliminary information. I said, now we want you guys part of the process. Okay, moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we will be adjourning later on.